So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem Spy X Family. So let's start the series. The man in the blue suit. The scent of rain and wet will fill the air. Naruto Uzumaki stood perfectly still in the shadow of a telephone box, the collar of his borrowed trench coat turned high, and a single thought pounded behind his eyes: this is all wrong. He wasn't supposed to be here. Wherever here was. The last clear memory was a seal, a flash of orange light, and a pulling sensation behind his navel like a reverse summoning gone sickly sweet. Then, cobblestones under his feet, the smell of diesel and perfume, and the crushing, deafening silence of a city with no chakra. No familiar hum of life energy. Just blank static, punctuated by the sharp, metallic clicks of heels and the low murmur of voices speaking a language he somehow understood but had never learned. And the eyes. He'd felt them within minutes. Not from one direction, but three. A soft, persistent pressure at the base of his skull. Surveillance. Professional. His own instincts, honed in a world of shinobi, screamed at him to melt into a crowd, to find high ground, to identify the threats. But his body felt heavy, slow, like moving through syrup. His chakra was there, a faint, guttering flame deep in his core, but reaching for it was agony, a sharp, spiritual headache that made his vision swim. So he stood. And he watched. His assignment, scrawled on a slip of paper in his own handwriting that he didn't remember writing, was clear: observe the man in the blue suit. Do not interact. Report on his contacts. The man in the blue suit was currently buying flowers from a stall across the wide, rain-slicked street. He was tall, blond, with sharp, composed features and eyes the color of a winter lake. Impeccable. He looked like a diplomat, or a wealthy businessman. He smiled at the vendor, a polite, meaningless curve of his lips that never touched his eyes. Naruto knew fake smiles. He'd worn enough of them himself in his early years. This man's was a masterpiece, a flawless facade of pleasant anonymity. Name, Lloyd Forger. The paper had said. A psychiatrist. Naruto's gut churned. This man was no doctor. He moved with a predator's economy, every gesture precise, calculated. When he took his change, his fingers never brushed the vendor's palm. When he turned, his eyes swept the intersection in one smooth, unhurried arc, missing nothing. Missing Naruto. That was the first clue. Naruto, even suppressed, was not easy to miss. He was a sunspot in a gray world. Yet Lloyd Forger's gaze passed over his shadow as if it were empty. He knows I'm here, Naruto realized, a cold trickle of understanding running down his spine. He's pretending not to. He's the bait. I'm not the watcher. I'm the one being drawn out. Desire, to understand why he's here, to complete the vague mission, to find a point of contact in this silent, alien world. Hidden obstacle, he is the target of the surveillance. His chakra is crippled. The entire scenario is a trap constructed by an unknown party. A flicker of movement to his left. A cafe window. A woman with raven black hair sat alone, stirring a cup of tea she hadn't tasted. She was beautiful in a way that seemed sharp, fragile, and terrifying all at once. Her posture was tense, her knuckles white on the spoon. She was watching Lloyd Forger with an intensity that vibrated across the street. Not love. Not hatred. It was the focus of a scorpion poised to strike. Naruto's breath hitched. Assassin. The word surfaced from some deep, instinctual well. Her killing intent wasn't a blazing signal like in his world, it was a vacuum, a pocket of absolute zero that sucked the warmth from the air. She hit it well. But not from him. He could feel emotions here, a muddy, tumultuous river where chakra should be. From Lloyd, a cool, disciplined focus. From the woman, a roiling storm of anxiety and grim purpose. And then a spike of pure, undiluted panic. It came from behind him. Small, bright, and electric. He turned his head, just a fraction. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6, with hair the color of dusk and enormous, green eyes, was hiding in a bakery doorway. She was staring directly at him. Not at Lloyd, not at the woman. At him. And her mind, it wasn't a quiet stream of child thoughts. It was a deafening shout. He's thinking about the man and the lady in the mission, but he's also thinking about ramen in a place called Konoha, and he's so loud and sad, and he's not like the others. He feels different. He's a good guy maybe, but he's being watched by the mean man in the gray coat, and oh no, Papa is in danger from the lady, and this man knows she's dangerous. I have to. Naruto's eyes widened. He heard no words, but the emotional cascade, fear, confusion, a desperate need to protect, was unmistakable. The girl knew. She knew everything. About him, about Lloyd, about the assassin. Risky decision, break protocol. Abandon observation. Acknowledge the child. He gave the smallest nod, a barely perceptible dip of his chin, aiming to convey reassurance. It's okay. The girl Anya, the thought name floated to him, gasped, her small hands flying to her mouth. Her thoughts exploded in a starburst of shock. Asterisk, he heard me. He heard me, asterisk. It was the catalyst. The man in the gray coat, the third point of surveillance Naruto had sensed, moved. He'd been a newspaper reader on a bench. Now he was striding purposefully towards the bakery, towards Anya, his hand reaching inside his jacket. The assassin woman saw the gray-coated man's movement, interpreted it as a threat to Lloyd. She stood up, her teacup clattering. Lloyd Forger, accepting his flowers, saw the woman rise, saw the gray-coated man converge, and his perfect composure cracked for a microsecond. His eyes flickered to the woman, to Anya, to the gray coat, calculating trajectories, threats, outcomes. They settled, for a terrifying instant, on Naruto. The Winterlake eyes were no longer calm. They were assessing, recategorizing. Threat. Variable. Unpredictable. Naruto acted. His chakra was dormant, but his body was still that of a shinobi. He moved not with a shunshin, but with pure, desperate speed, crossing the street in a blur that made pedestrians blink. He didn't go for the gray-coated man. He didn't go for Lloyd. He placed himself squarely between the assassin woman and the little girl, his back to Anya, his hands open and visible at his sides. "Don't," he said, his voice rough from disuse, but carrying across the sudden stillness. He looked at the assassin, meeting her wide, crimson-tinged eyes. He poured every ounce of his will, his own longing for connection, his instinct to protect, into his gaze. "She's just a kid." The world froze. The gray-coated man's hand stopped inside his jacket. Lloyd stood rooted, flowers forgotten. The assassin woman stared, her killer's certainty shattered by this wild, blonde intervention from a variable she had never accounted for. And Anya, from behind Naruto's legs, whispered a single, odd, telepathic thought that echoed in the hollow space between them all. Asterisk, Papa? A second Papa, asterisk. Consequence, the careful, silent operation is shattered. Lloyd's cover is compromised. Ya's mission is aborted. Anya's secret is potentially exposed. And Naruto Uzumaki has just announced himself as the most dangerous and unpredictable element in Astania's Shadow War, a man who acts not from strategy, but from a heart that screams louder than any lie detector. The gray-coated man finally drew his weapon, a sleek, silenced pistol. He aimed not at Lloyd, not at Ye, but at the nexus of the chaos. At Naruto. Lloyd Forger's mind, a supercomputer of contingency plans, short-circuited for precisely 1.2 seconds. The variable, the blonde man in the ill-fitting coat he'd tagged as suspicious, probable low-level intelligence asset, had just performed an act of catastrophic altruism. He had moved faster than any civilian should. He had positioned himself not to attack, but to shield. He had spoken not a code phrase or a threat, but a plea. "She's just a kid." And Anya. His Anya. Was she part of this? Was this a wise maneuver he wasn't briefed on? A garden trap? His eyes darted to her small, pale face peeking from behind the stranger's legs. She wasn't crying. She was staring. With an expression of profound, earth-shattering wonder. The assassin, Ye Breyer, city hall clerk, potential wife candidate, was also frozen, her body coiled like a spring. Her target was no longer just Lloyd Forger. It was the tableau, the child, the interloper, the gun now pointed. Her mission parameters were dissolving before her. The gray-coated man SSS, Lloyd identified the cut of the jacket, the cold efficiency had his priority. Eliminate the unknown. The man who moved like lightning and disrupted the delicate ecosystem of the street. Lloyd made a decision. Operation Strix, the fabrication of a perfect family to get close to target Donovan Desmond, was a house of cards. Anya was the foundation. This stranger, inexplicably, had thrown his body over that foundation. That made him, in this fractured moment, an asset to be protected. As the SSS agent's finger tightened on the trigger, Lloyd dropped the flowers. The bouquet hit the wet pavement with a soft, final thud. In the same motion, his hand dipped into his own pocket, not for a weapon, but for a small, polished silver case, his psychiatrist's business card holder. "Excuse me, officer," he called out, his voice slicing through the tension with practiced, authoritative calm. He took 3 deliberate steps forward, placing himself partially in the line of fire. "Is there a problem here? This is my cousin. He's visiting from the country. A bit overwhelmed by the city, I'm afraid." He offered a smile, the one he used on nervous patients. "Anya, come to Papa." The lie was audacious. Flimsy. But it created a new narrative, a splash of paint over the alarming scene. The SSS agent's eyes flickered to Lloyd. The gun didn't waver. "Stay back, citizen. This man is under surveillance for suspicious activity." "Suspicious?" Lloyd chuckled, a dry, professional sound. "He was asking me for directions to my apartment. He's hopeless with maps." "Weren't you, Jiro?" He used the first common male name that came to mind, layering the fiction. Naruto felt the shift. The focus splitting. The blonde man, Lloyd, was lying. Smoothly, effortlessly. But underneath the cool stream of his words, Naruto sensed a fierce, protective torrent aimed at the girl. It was real. That part was real. He made another decision. Play alone. Survive. Yeah, Naruto rasped, forcing a sheepish grin onto his face. It felt unnatural. Told you I'd get lost, Lloyd and I. The honorific slipped out, a relic of his world. He slowly raised his empty hands higher. Didn't mean to cause a fuss. Briar watched, her mind a whirlpool. This was not her mission. Her mission was to eliminate the spy codenamed Twilight if he made contact with a certain informant. The informant wasn't here. This was a family dispute? A state security arrest? The man who had moved to protect the child had called her out. He had seen her intent. No one had ever done that before. It left her unmoored. She should disengage. But the child looked so small. And the blonde stranger, Jiro, his smile didn't reach his eyes either, but his body was still angled to shield the girl. Anya's mind was a fireworks display. Asterisk Papa is lying. But he's lying to protect the loud man. The loud man is lying too. He's playing along. He's scared but not of the gun, of something else, of being alone. Asterisk she clutched the damp fabric of Naruto's trench coat. The thoughts were so loud, so warm. Not like the cold, sharp thoughts of spies and assassins. They were like big, fluffy blankets. She took a wobbling step out from behind him. Papa, she said aloud, her voice small but clear. I was scared. The nice man helped me. She pointed a tiny finger at the SSS agent. That man was coming to grab me. The accusation, delivered with a child's blunt honesty, changed the chemical composition of the standoff. A passing woman gasped. A shopkeeper peered out with concern. The SSS agent's jaw tightened. His orders were surveillance and clean extraction of the unknown element. A public scene with a crying child and a plausible, angry citizen was not clean. He weighed his options, his eyes darting between Lloyd's polite, dangerous smile and Naruto's deceptively open stance. He lowered the gun, just an inch. Identification. All of you. This was the next gauntlet. Naruto had none. Lloyd knew this. He could see the emptiness in the variable's pockets from 10 feet away. Then, Briar moved. She walked forward, her steps hesitant, a perfect mimicry of a concerned, timid office worker. Oh my, she said, her voice soft. Lloyd? Is that you? I saw you from the cafe. Is everything all right? She looked at the SSS agent, her eyes wide and innocent. Officer, I can vouch for Dr. Forger. He's a friend from work. And this must be his daughter, Anya. She's mentioned at City Hall how excited she was for her cousin to visit. She was weaving herself into Lloyd's lie. Instinctively. Because the alternative was a shootout in the street with a child present. Because the strange blonde man had looked at her not with fear, but with a plea for humanity. It had touched a part of her she kept locked away. Lloyd's mental calculations went into overdrive. Briar. Here. Intervening. Another variable aligning with startling, inconvenient synergy. Yeah. Thank goodness. Yes, this is my cousin, Jiro. He seems to have gotten tangled in some misunderstanding. The SSS agent was outnumbered by a suddenly coalescing family. His mandate was fading. With a final, hard look at Naruto, a look that promised this isn't over, he slowly holstered his weapon. Check your cousin's documents, doctor. The city is not safe for naive tourists. There will be a report. He turned and melted back into the foot traffic, a gray ghost swallowed by the crowd. The silence he left behind was heavier than the gunshot would have been. The four of them stood on the wet pavement, the spy, the assassin, the telepath, and the shinobi. A twisted parody of a family meeting. The rain began to fall again, a fine, cold mist. Lloyd retrieved his flowers. They were bruised. He looked at Naruto. The winter-like eyes were now pure analysis. Cousin Jiro, he said, the words smooth as ice. Shall we go home? We have much to discuss. Naruto met his gaze. He felt the ocean of lies beneath the man's calm surface. He felt the sharp, anxious thrum from the woman, yeah. He felt the radiant, hopeful, terrified curiosity beaming from the little girl still holding his coat. He had no documents. No memory. No place in this world. Only this, a fabricated invitation from a liar, an unspoken alliance with a killer, and the unwavering, psychic faith of a child who thought he was a second papa. He nodded. Yeah, he said. I guess we do. As they turned to leave a bizarre, tense procession, Naruto felt the eyes again. Not just the SSS agents. Others. Higher up. In the windows. On the rooftops. A network of watchers, now irrevocably focused on the new anomaly. And deep within him, the guttering chakra flame sputtered. Not in pain. In recognition. Something in the city of lies and steel was calling to it. Something old. Something hungry. Anya slipped her small, warm hand into his. Her thoughts were a quiet, determined hum in his mind. Asterisk, it's okay. We'll protect you. We're a family now. Mostly fake. But maybe a little bit real, asterisk. Naruto looked down at her, then at the stiff backs of Lloyd and Yo walking ahead. A spy. An assassin. A mind reader. And him. A lost Hokage. He squeezed Anya's hand back, a real smile finally touching his eyes for the first time since he'd arrived in this cold, strange world. Yeah, he whispered, just for her. Maybe a little bit real. Chapter 2, The Apartment of Lies. The walk to the apartment was a silent, four-person procession through a symphony of rain and suspicion. Lloyd Forger led, his posture a textbook example of casual composure. Every step was measured, his head turning occasionally to point out a landmark to Cousin Jiro in a tone of benign hospitality. Inside, his mind was a war room. Who is he? Why sleeper agent gone rogue? Garden operative? A genuine anomaly? His speed was beyond trained human parameters. No micro-expressions of deception when he played along either a master or utterly truthful. The child's reaction is the primary variable. Anya's attachment is instantaneous and profound. Leverage? Risk? He could feel the weight of the man's presence 2 steps behind him. It was not the quiet stalk of a fellow spy. It was a low, steady hum, like a power generator idling in a basement. Yabrier walked beside Lloyd, her hands clenched around her handbag. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had intervened. She, the Thorn Princess, had woven herself into a stranger's cover story. It was a catastrophic breach of protocol. Yet, the image of the man Jiro placing himself between her lethal focus and the little girl was seared behind her eyes. No one had ever done that. Missions were clean, clinical. Children were abstract hazards, not small, warm beings you shielded with your back. She stole a glance at him. His blonde hair was dark with rain, plastered to his forehead. He was looking around with an open, almost naive curiosity, but his eyes, a startling, bright blue, missed nothing. They flickered to rooftops, to alley mouths, to reflections in shop windows. A soldier's eyes. He saw me. He knew what I was. And he still asked me to stop. The contradiction made her head ache. Desire, Lloyd, to control the anomaly, extract information, and assess its impact on Operation Strix. Yeah, to understand the man who saw her darkness and asked for mercy. Naruto, to find solid ground, a moment of truth in this world of facades. Hidden obstacle, the apartment is a stage set, every item a prop. Naruto's chakra is beginning to resonate weakly with an unknown energy source in the city, causing subtle, uncontrolled sensory flares. Anya is hearing his memories, fragments of battles and loneliness, and is becoming emotionally overloaded. Anya, swinging her arms between Lloyd and Naruto, was a conduit of chaotic thought. Asterisk Papa's mind is all sharp lines and red alerts. Mama's mind is fizzy and scared like shaken soda. Loud man's mind is pictures. Big, warm, sad pictures. A fox made of fire. A man with silver hair. A village in leaves. So many people, then empty. So empty. He's more alone than I was in the lab. She squeezed Naruto's hand tighter, a physical tether to his roaring mental presence. She had to make this work. A real family needed a papa, a mama, and a child. They had that now. Even if one papa was new and loud and sad. She'd gotten a stellar star on her last homework. Surely that meant she could handle one extra papa. They reached a modest but respectable apartment building. Home sweet home, Lloyd said, his key clicking in the lock with finality. The apartment was a masterpiece of mid-century decor and staged normality. Clean, orderly, warm. A lie wrapped in wool blankets and floral wallpaper. To Naruto, it felt like stepping into a detailed painting. Perfect, but lifeless. No lingering emotional echoes in the walls. No history. It was the opposite of the Hokage residence, which practically vibrated with the ghosts of all who had lived, worked, and worried there. Make yourself comfortable, Jiro, Lloyd said, hanging his coat with precise movements. I'll put on tea. Yeah, could you fetch a towel for our guest? You jumped. Oh. Yes, of course. She scurried away, grateful for a task. Lloyd's eyes met Naruto's. The pleasant facade was gone, replaced by a calm, unblinking scrutiny. You move very quickly for a country cousin. Naruto held the gaze. He was tired. Tired of the silence, tired of the pressure in his skull, tired of not knowing. He decided on a fragment of truth. I've had training. To protect people. Who trained you? Does it matter? They're not here. The ache in his voice was genuine, raw. It wasn't an act. Lloyd filed the response away. Grief detected. Possibly authentic. The man with the gun was state security. You've made a powerful enemy on your first day in the city. I seem to have that effect. Anya tugged on Lloyd's sleeve. Papa, Cousin Jiro is all wet. He'll catch a cold. Ya returned with a towel. She held it out to Naruto, her eyes darting away from his. Here. Thanks, he said, taking it. Their fingers brushed. A jolt. Not static electricity. For Naruto, it was a sensory explosion. Her emotional signature, a tangled knot of fierce protectiveness, profound loneliness, and a deep, abiding fear of being found out, flooded his muted senses. It was so stark, so similar to his own childhood years, it stole his breath. For yeah, it was the feeling of a door blowing open in a sealed room. She didn't sense his emotions, but she felt the sheer, physical potency held in check. Like touching the casing of a dormant bomb. She snatched her hand back. Risky decision. Naruto, disarmed by the echo of his own past in her, breaks the script Lloyd is writing. He looks directly at ya, ignoring Lloyd's analytical stare. You came to help back there. You didn't have to. Thank you. It was the wrong thing to say to a spy. Gratitude was a lever. Lloyd's eyes narrowed. Ya flushed. It was nothing. Anyone would have, her voice trailed off. They both knew that wasn't true. Anya, Lloyd interjected, smoothly reclaiming control. Why don't you show Cousin Jiro the guest room? I need to speak with ya about dinner. Okay. Anya chirped, seizing Naruto's hand again and pulling him down the hall. It's small but it's heck cozy. I helped pick the curtains. The guest room was indeed small. A bed, a desk, a window looking out onto a fire escape. It felt like a cell. A comfortable, well-decorated cell. Anya closed the door and looked up at him, her huge eyes serious. You don't have any papers, she whispered, not a question. Naruto knelt, bringing himself to her eye level. No. I don't. You're from far away. Very far. You're a good guy. She said it with the absolute faith of a child who had seen the proof in his thoughts. You protect people. Like Papa. And Mama. Naruto's throat tightened. Your Papa and Mama, they're complicated, aren't they? Anya nodded vigorously. Papa lies for peace. Mama lies for something else. But they're trying. We're all trying. Please stay. The thought was a desperate, silent plea. He didn't hear the words, but the emotion, a profound, orphan's yearning for stability, washed over him. He saw himself in her, in the way she clung to this fragile, fabricated reality. He placed a hand on her head. I'll stay for now. I promise. In the living room, the atmosphere was glacial. Your assessment, Lloyd said, his voice low. He was not asking as a husband, but as Twilight. You wrung her hands. He's dangerous. But not in the way I expected. He's observant. And when he moved. Lloyd, I don't think I could match that speed. Noted. His allegiance? I don't know. He seems lost. And sad. She hesitated. He thanked me. A tactic to build rapport. Maybe. But she didn't believe it. The gratitude in his blue eyes had been too stark, too unguarded. It reminded her of herself, on the bad nights, wishing for someone to see her as just ya. Lloyd processed this. Emotional vulnerability as a tool was advanced. But if it was genuine, it was a weakness he could exploit. We keep him close. We monitor him. He provides a useful, unexpected layer of cover now that the SSS has seen us together. He becomes part of the family narrative. What if he's a threat to Anya? Ya's voice was sharp, a mother bear's growl beneath the clerk's timidity. Lloyd's gaze softened, a fraction. It was his only real tell. Then we remove him. But Anya is attached. We proceed with caution. From the guest room, Naruto stared out the window. The rain had stopped. The city glittered, cold and hard. He concentrated inward, past the headache, towards the guttering chakra flame. He pushed, gently. Just a little. Just enough to sense. The flame flickered, then surged weakly. A wave of sensation crashed over him. Not the emotions of people, but something deeper, in the bones of the city itself. A thrumming, dissonant energy. It was buried, scattered in fragments. It felt wounded. And angry. It called to the fox's energy within him, a dark mirror to its chaotic power. and then he felt eyes again. But these were not human. They were ancient, cold, and aware. They'd been sleeping. Now, they were opening. His own blue eyes snapped open, glowing faintly gold for an instant in the darkened window's reflection. Down the hall, Anya jerked in her bed, a nightmare image flashing in her mind, big stone eyes in the dark, looking at Loudman looking for him. In the living room, Lloyd's perfectly calibrated watch, a sensitive piece of equipment, gave a sudden, erratic spin of its second hand before settling. He frowned at it. Electromagnetic interference? And yeah, cleaning a teacup in the kitchen, felt the fine hairs on her arms stand up. A primal, atavistic chill ran down her spine. The feeling she got just before a kill, when the world held its breath. Consequence, the fragile, fake domestic peace is established, but it is built over a fault line. Naruto has been accepted as a temporary fixture, but he is a walking catalyst. His presence has not only drawn human surveillance but has begun to agitate a dormant, supernatural energy buried within Astania. The apartment is no longer just a stage for spies, it has become the epicenter of a convergence no one, not even Twilight, had planned for. The bonds they are forming, the protective instinct, the shared loneliness, Anya's desperate hope are the only things holding the delicate structure together as the ground beneath them begins to tremble. Chapter 3, The Resonance. Breakfast was a silent war fought with cutlery. Lloyd ate with surgical precision, his mind replaying the previous night's data points, the erratic watch, his instinctual alert, Anya's unusually fitful sleep. The anomaly, Jiro, sat across from him, demolishing a plate of eggs with a single-minded focus that felt less like hunger and more like a mechanical refueling process. He eats like someone who's known starvation, Lloyd noted. Muscle memory. Not training, survival. So, Jiro, Lloyd began, his tone light, conversational scalpel poised. You mentioned training. What exactly did you do back home? Naruto looked up, a chunk of toast halfway to his mouth. The question hung in the air between them, a trap disguised as small talk. He could feel his subtle tension from the stove, Anya's wide-eyed stare from beside him. Desire, Naruto, to give enough truth to satisfy scrutiny without exposing the impossible. To find a purpose here, beyond being a suspicious guest. Lloyd, to categorize the threat, to find its utility, to protect Operation Strix. Anya, to keep her new, loud, warm family member from saying something that makes Papa send him away. Hidden obstacle, the strange energy Naruto sensed is pulsing in a slow, hypnotic rhythm beneath the city, subtly influencing his dampened chakra. It's making his control slip, his senses flare unpredictably. I was a troubleshooter, Naruto said finally, the word foreign on his tongue but fitting in a twisted way. People had problems. I fixed them. Sometimes it involved talking. Sometimes it involved not talking. A diplomat? Lloyd probed. Sometimes. More like a barrier. The ghost of a sad, proud smile touched Naruto's lips. Between the problem and the people. Anya's thoughts burst into his awareness, a frantic, colorful translation. Asterisk he means he stood in front of bad things so others didn't have to. He was a human shield. A super brave one, asterisk. Lloyd's eyes didn't waver. A noble profession. And what brings you to Astania? Business? Pleasure? The million Ryan question. Naruto set his fork down. The headache was returning, a dull throb sinking with a faint, subterranean pulse he could now constantly feel. Thursday thump. Like a giant, stone heart buried deep. I'm looking for something, he said, which was true. I don't know what it is yet. But I'll know it when I find it. It was too vague. Too mystical. Lloyd's analyst mind rejected it. Yet, the man's delivery held zero deception. He believed his own statement utterly. Yet turned from the stove, a dishcloth in her hands. Maybe you just needed a new start, she said softly, almost to herself. A lot of people come to the city for that. Her words, meant as a flimsy support for the cover, struck a chord. Naruto looked at her, seeing not the assassin but the woman clinging to her own new start, however fraudulent. Yeah, he said, his voice quieter. A new start. The moment of unexpected connection was shattered by the doorbell. A sharp, cheerful ring that froze the room. Lloyd was on his feet in an instant, his body subtly positioning itself between the door and Anya. I'll get it. His walk to the foyer was casual, but Naruto saw the way his fingers flexed once, ready to become weapons. Anya's small hand crept onto Naruto's knee under the table. Her thoughts were a terrified whisper. Asterisk it's the SSS man from yesterday. The gray coat. He's thinking about Loud Man and papers and taking people away, asterisk. Naruto's own instincts fired. He placed his hand over Anya's, a silent promise. His eyes met his across the room. She had gone preternaturally still, a vase that could shatter into 1,000 lethal pieces. Lloyd opened the door. Inspector. This is a surprise. It was the gray-coated man, but out of uniform. A plain, beige trench coat now. He offered a thin, bureaucratic smile. Apologies for the early call, Dr. Forger. Just following up on the incident report. May I come in? Risky decision. Before Lloyd can concoct a reason to refuse, Naruto stands up. He walks to the foyer, projecting an air of open, slightly clumsy curiosity. Oh, hello. The officer from yesterday. Everything sorted out? He inserted himself into the confrontation, forcing the inspector's focus onto him, drawing fire away from Lloyd's need to dissemble and from Anya's hiding spot. The inspector's eyes, flinty and dismissive yesterday, now held a keen, cold interest. Mr. Jiro Forger. Indeed. Your documentation. I need to see it for the report. Lloyd's mind raced. He's pushing. Testing. The incident didn't warrant a home visit. This was a targeted investigation. The anomaly had drawn a predator. Naruto smiled, a brilliant, disarming grin that didn't reach his suddenly sharp eyes. Sure. It's right in my bag. Just a mess in there, 1 second. He turned and walked back towards the guest room, moving slowly, buying time. He had no bag. No documents. He was walking into a dead end. In the kitchen, his grip on the dishcloth tore it cleanly in two. Naruto entered the small room and closed the door. He leaned against it, heart hammering. The subterranean pulse grew louder. THU thump. It was agitated. It resonated with the spike of his own anxiety, with the fox chakra stirring in its cage. He looked at his hands. A faint, barely visible shimmer of orange energy flickered around his fingertips for a split second before vanishing. No. Not here. Not now. But he had no other tools. He was a shinobi with no kunai, a Hokage with no village. An idea, desperate and insane, formed. It relied on everything being a lie. He reached out with his will, not to his chakra, but to the echo of it. To the impression of power he could project. He focused on the memory of transformation jutsu, on the feel of solid illusion. He couldn't create something from nothing. But in a world built on perception, maybe he could bend it. Just a little. He concentrated on the inspector's expectations, a flimsy, cheap identity card from a rural province. He poured his intent, his need to protect the fragile piece in the next room, into that empty space in his pocket. The strange city energy throbbed, and for a second, it listened. He reached into his pocket. His fingers closed around something warm and solid. He pulled it out. A laminated card. It had his face, a name he didn't recognize, and official-looking stamps. It felt real. It looked utterly convincing. But it hummed with a faint, alien energy that made his teeth ache. A forgery. Not of paper, but of resonant intent. A metaphysical counterfeit. He took a steadying breath and walked back out. The inspector was growing impatient. Lloyd was in the middle of a smooth, distracting monologue about civic responsibility. Naruto handed the card over without a word. The inspector took it, his eyes scanning it. He rubbed the laminate between his fingers. He held it up to the light. He looked from the card to Naruto's face and back again. His brow furrowed. Everything checked out. The paper stock, the hologram, the wear pattern. It was perfect. And that, to a professional paranoid, was the problem. This is in remarkable condition for a traveler, the inspector said softly. I'm very careful with my things, Naruto replied, holding his gaze. He pushed a wisp of feeling toward the man, the bland confidence of a simple man with nothing to hide. It wasn't mind control. It was a nudge. A suggestion on a frequency the man's suspicion was already tuned to. The inspector stared a moment longer, then handed the card back. The dissonance was giving him a headache. Very well. The matter is closed. He tipped his hat to Lloyd. Good day, Doctor. The door closed. The lock clicked. Silence, heavier than before. Lloyd turned slowly. His Winterlake eyes were glaciers. That was an impressive document, Jiro. Where did you get it? Naruto looked at the card in his hand. As the tension left him, its solidity wavered. The edges blurred. With a soft fizz and a smell of ozone, it dissolved into motes of golden light that winked out before they hit the carpet. Anya, peeking from the kitchen doorway, gasped. Asterisk, he made magic. Real magic, asterisk. His hand flew to her mouth. Lloyd did not react outwardly. But inside, his entire understanding of the possible shattered and rearranged itself. This was not espionage. This was something else. Something beyond the garden, beyond wise. Paranormal. Psionic. Threat level, absolute. Naruto looked at his empty hand, then at their shocked faces. The consequence of his gamble was now due. I don't know how I did that, he said, the truth laid bare. It's connected to why I'm here. There's something under this city. It's awake. And it's talking to me. He had given them the truth. Now he was utterly at their mercy. Lloyd took a single, deliberate step forward. What, he said, each word an ice chip, are you? Consequence, the precarious cover is blown wide open. Naruto has revealed a non-human capability, catapulting himself from suspicious stranger to existential unknown in Lloyd's eyes. The inspector, though temporarily repelled, will report the anomalous encounter, guaranteeing escalated SSS interest. The strange energy of the city now has a confirmed conduit in Naruto, and its awakening has just accelerated. The Forger family must decide, do they eliminate the unimaginable threat in their guest room, or do they protect the man who, with a magic trick born of desperation, just protected them? Chapter 4, The Terms of Sanctuary. The silence in the wake of Lloyd's question was a physical thing, thick and suffocating. The motes of light from the dissolved ID card still seemed to hang in the air, a constellation of impossible evidence. Naruto looked from Lloyd's glacial stare to his wide, uncertain eyes, to Anya's awestruck gaze. He was cornered, not by enemies, but by the terrifying reality of his own existence in this world. He had no lies left that would hold. What am I? Naruto repeated, the words tasting like ash. He ran a hand through his spiky hair, the gesture weary. I'm a man who's lost. I'm from a place, a world, where the energy I used is as common as breathing air for some of us. It's called chakra. It's life force. Willpower. It's the stuff of techniques, of jutsu. What I just did, that was a pathetic shadow of what I should be able to do. He met Lloyd's eyes, his own blue ones blazing with a frustrated honesty. I don't know how I got here. But something here is sick. It's like a wound in the ground, and it's leaking something that feels like chakra's twisted cousin. And it's reacting to me. Lloyd processed this. A supernatural refugee. An energy source. It was madness. Yet, it was the only hypothesis that fit all the data, the speed, the sensory awareness, the fabricated ID, the empathic projections Anya seemed to pick up on. Madness, but a structured one. You are a security nightmare, Lloyd stated, his voice flat. You are a beacon for every intelligence agency and clandestine organization on the continent. Your presence in this apartment guarantees its eventual destruction and the compromise of everyone in it. Ya flinched. Anya's lower lip trembled. Desire, Lloyd, to mitigate the catastrophic risk, or to cleanly sever it. Yeah, to reconcile the inhuman ability with the man who protected a child. Naruto, to earn a stay of execution, to find a foothold of trust. Hidden obstacle, the SSS inspector, though gone, has planted a surveillance device outside the apartment. The twisted chakra Naruto senses is coalescing around specific locations in the city, one of which is near Eden Academy. I know, Naruto said, bowing his head. The weight of it, the danger he'd brought to this fragile household, crashed down on him. I'll go. Right now. I'll draw their attention away from you. He turned towards the guest room to gather his non-existent things. No. The word was a sharp, simultaneous outburst from two throats. Ya and Anya stared at each other, surprised by their own unity. Ya stepped forward, her hands clenched at her sides. You can't just go out there. That inspector, he's not satisfied. They'll be waiting. They'll take you apart to figure out what you are. Her voice shook, not with fear for herself, but with a horrific clarity of what state interrogation looked like. Anya darted forward and wrapped her arms around Naruto's leg. Asterisk, you promised. You said you'd stay. You're part of the family project, asterisk, her mind screamed, the thought so loud and desperate it felt like a physical tug. Lloyd watched the scene, his calculations furiously updating. Sentiment is overriding logic. Ya's protective instinct is engaged, not just for Anya, but for him. Anya's attachment is a critical vulnerability. But sentiment was also data. The anomaly inspired irrational loyalty. That was a power in itself. And a power could be harnessed. Sit down, Lloyd commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. He walked to the window, glanced out with a spy's practiced casualness, and let the curtain fall back. Leaving now is the most dangerous option for all involved. It creates a chaotic variable I cannot control. Your exit would be observed, and your point of origin, this apartment, would be forever compromised. He turned back, his hands clasped behind his back. Twilight was fully in command now. Therefore, you will stay. But under new, non-negotiable terms. This is not asylum. This is a provisional operational alliance. Naruto slowly pried Anya off his leg and knelt to her level. It's okay, kiddo. Let's hear the terms. He looked back at Lloyd. I'm listening. 1. Lloyd began, ticking points off on his fingers. You are Jiro Forger, my cousin from the country, here for an extended visit while seeking employment. You will memorize and adhere to a full backstory I will provide. No deviations. No more magic. 2. You will submit to my assessment. I need to understand the full extent of your capabilities, their triggers, and their limitations. We will find a way to suppress or mimic them as normal human traits. Speed can be explained as athletic training. Enhanced awareness as acute intuition. Nothing more. 3. You will make yourself useful. You will assist in maintaining this cover. That includes chores, appearing in public as a family unit, and supporting Anya's integration at Eden Academy. 4. Lloyd's eyes turned arctic. You will have no private contact with any external party. You will report any strange sensations, any feeling of being watched, any communication from this underground energy, directly and immediately to me. You are not a guest. You are an asset. And assets are managed. It was a merciless, clinical offer. A cage made of rules. But it was a cage with a roof, in a warm apartment, with people who, for their own twisted reasons, didn't want to see him dissected in a lab. Risky decision, Naruto accepts, but on one condition of his own. I agree, Naruto said, standing. But my term is this: I protect Anya. Not as part of the cover. For real. Wherever she goes, my first priority is her safety. If your rules or your operations ever put her in direct, unacceptable danger, the deal is off, and I act to save her. You can try to stop me. The challenge hung in the air. It was a direct counter to Lloyd's absolute control. Lloyd's gaze didn't flicker. Internally, he was reassessing. The anomaly had a core directive: protect the child. It was a predictable lever. Predictable was manageable. And it aligned, inconveniently, with his own deepest priority. Acceptable, Lloyd said curtly. Her safety is the cornerstone of this household. Now. Your first task. He walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a hefty encyclopedia, and dropped it on the table. You will read this. You will learn the history, geography, and political structure of Ostania and Westalis. Your ignorance is a liability. You will test you later. You jumped. Me? It will aid your own cover as a knowledgeable citizen, Lloyd said smoothly, before turning back to Naruto. While you study, I will be running diagnostics. The diagnostics were conducted in the guest room. They were less medical and more tactical. Lloyd had Naruto perform a series of physical tests: reaction speed, grip strength, balance. The results were, as expected, off the charts but just within the realm of Olympic-level human potential. Lloyd carefully noted the margins. Then came the real test. Lloyd produced a small, calibrated radiation detector, a sensitive electromagnetic field reader, and a biometric monitor. The ID card, Lloyd said, setting up the devices. Try to recreate the effect. On this. He placed a blank piece of white cardstock on the desk. Naruto frowned, focusing. He reached for the guttering flame inside. The headache spiked. The subterranean pulse thrummed in sympathy. He tried to push intent into the card, to make it appear as a bus ticket. Nothing. He strained. Sweat beaded on his temple. The EMF reader screeched, its needle slamming into the red zone. The biometric monitor showed Naruto's heart rate plummeting, then skyrocketing, then stabilizing at an impossibly steady, slow rhythm. The radiation detector remained silent. The blank card shivered. For a second, its edges seemed to blur. A faint, shimmering image of a ticket appeared, transparent as a ghost, before vanishing. The paper was now warm to the touch and slightly damp, as if with dew. Inconsistent, Lloyd murmured, making notes. Trigger seems tied to stress and external psychic resonance. Output is unstable, primarily photonic and thermal with a minor reality-bending perceptual component. Not material creation. Advanced illusion. He looked at Naruto, who was panting slightly. Can you do it without the external pulse? I don't even know what the external pulse is, Naruto admitted, wiping his brow. It's like a drumbeat under everything. It's getting clearer. It's attuning to him, Lloyd thought with cold dread. He's not just sensing it. They're sinking. That evening, during his stilted quiz on Ostania's export economy, the consequence of their new alliance arrived. A pigeon landed on the fire escape outside the guest room window. It was a plump, ordinary-looking bird. But it carried a tiny, almost invisible capsule on its leg. A wise messenger. Lloyd, spotting it during a check on Naruto's progress, excused himself. On the fire escape, he retrieved the message. It was a single line, in a code only Twilight would know. Acid cuckoo confirmed active in your sector. Suspected link to ancient geological phenomena division. Objective, locate and contain. Avoid SSS. Handler, Nightfall. Lloyd crushed the paper in his fist. Nightfall. Fiona Frost. Her involvement meant Wise was taking the strange energy readings seriously. They'd codenamed it geological phenomena. And they had sent a top agent to find its source. They were looking for what was calling to Naruto. And their orders were to contain. He looked back through the window into the warm, lamplit apartment. Ya was patiently pointing at a map. Anya was doodling on the margin of the encyclopedia. Naruto was listening, a look of intense, frustrated concentration on his face. He had just agreed to harbor the very asset his own organization was hunting. And his rival, a woman who believed sentiment was a flaw, was now in the field, getting closer by the hour. Consequence, the provisional alliance is forged, but the walls are closing in. Naruto is now a double-edged asset for Lloyd, a source of unprecedented intel and an imminent conflict with his own agency. The external threat has crystallized. Wise is actively hunting the energy source, and the SSS is hunting the anomaly that created the ID card. The Forger apartment is no longer just a safe house, it is the eye of a converging storm. And Naruto's first test, protecting Anya, may come not from a foreign spy, but from his supposed ally's own side. Chapter 5, The Uninvited Guest. Eden Academy's annual parent-teacher conference was a battlefield of silk, subtle insults, and strategic networking. For Lloyd Forger, it was a critical mission to solidify his family's standing an inch closer to Donovan Desmond. For Ya, it was a gauntlet of social terror. For Anya, it was a minefield where a single misstep could cost her a Stella star. For Naruto Uzumaki, it was a sensory hellscape. The grand hall thronged with 100 conversations, clinking porcelain, and the rustle of expensive fabric. But beneath that, Naruto felt the roil of emotions, the sharp, competitive pride of mothers, the bored detachment of fathers, the anxious thrum of children desperate for approval. It was a swamp of human feeling, and he was waist-deep in it. And then there was the other pulse. The one from under the city. Here, on these manicured grounds in the city's elite sector, it was stronger. A low, persistent vibration through the soles of his polished, borrowed shoes. It wasn't hostile. It was attentive. Like a great beast had turned one heavy-lidded eye in the direction of the school. Desire, Naruto, to endure the overload, to be an unremarkable cousin, and to watch Anya 6. Lloyd, to present a flawless family front and make contact with a key Desmond associate. Anya, to not accidentally think about spy stuff or loud man's glowy energy in front of her teacher. Hidden obstacle, Agent Nightfall, Fiona Frost, is posing as a new transfer student's aunt. She is here to scout 4 geological phenomena anomalies and has already identified the Forger group as statistically unusual. The SSS also has a low-profile presence, scanning for the Jiro anomaly. Just stay close, smile, and nod, Lloyd had instructed on the way, his voice low. If anyone asks, you are recently discharged from the Military Medical Corps. It explains your bearing and occasional reticence. Naruto now stood beside a potted fern, trying to mimic the posture of the other men. He felt stiff and absurd in Lloyd's spare suit. His eyes, however, never stopped moving. He tracked the exits, the windows, the servers circulating with trays. He noted a man by the punch bowl whose interest lingered too long on Lloyd. He saw a woman with sleek black hair and violet eyes observing the room with a chilling, analytical stillness that reminded him of Shikamaru on a bad day. Fiona Frost, her name tag read. Aunt of Henry Henderson. Her gaze swept over him. It felt like being scanned by a very cold, very precise machine. He offered a bland smile. Her eyes narrowed a fraction before moving on. She's not just a parent, he thought. She's hunting. Mr. Forger. A pleasure. Lloyd was engaged by a man with a booming voice and an impeccably trimmed mustache, a man close to the Desmond circle. Lloyd seamlessly shifted into his psychiatrist persona, all attentive nods and insightful murmurs. Ya hovered at his side, a beautiful, nervous ornament. Anya, clutching Bondman to her chest, sidled up to Naruto. Her thoughts were a frantic whisper against the mental noise. Asterisk, the lady with the cold eyes is thinking about rocks and energy readings and Papa's file from Wise. She's looking for the thing that makes you glow, asterisk. Naruto's stomach tightened. He placed a hand gently on Anya's head, a gesture of reassurance. Stick with your mom, kiddo. I'm just gonna get some air by the terrace. He needed to distance himself, to lower the signal he seemed to be broadcasting. He slipped through the French doors onto a stone terrace overlooking the gardens. The cool evening air was a relief. The subterranean pulse was clearer here, a directional throb coming from the direction of the old botanical conservatory on the school's grounds, a Gothic, glass-paned structure shrouded in ivy. As he leaned on the balustrade, he heard a soft, deliberate step behind him. The country air must agree with you, Mr. Forger. You seem robust. He turned. Fiona Frost stood there, a half-empty champagne flute in her hand. Her smile was a geometric exercise. Just trying to stay fit, Naruto replied, falling back on his cover. City life is slower than I'm used to. Is it? She asked, her violet eyes boring into him. I've reviewed the report of your Little Street incident. Your reaction time was noted as anomalously high. The attending inspector filed a supplementary report on a physiological discrepancy. She was testing him, probing for a reaction. I was scared for my cousin's kid, Naruto said, layering a simple man's blunt honesty over his tension. Adrenaline does funny things. Indeed. She took a sip, her gaze drifting past him to the dark shape of the conservatory. This campus is quite historic. They say the foundations are built over ancient stone chambers. Some even whisper of unusual energy fields. Have you felt anything unusual since arriving in the city, Mr. Forger? The directness was a shockwave. She wasn't just suspicious, she was actively connecting him to the phenomenon. Risky decision, Naruto decides to weaponize a fragment of truth to redirect her suspicion away from Anya and Lloyd. He let his shoulders slump, injecting a note of confused vulnerability into his voice. Unusual? Lady, everything about this place is unusual. The noise, the people, and yeah, sometimes I get these headaches. Like a pressure, right behind the eyes. Lloyd says it's stress from the move. He rubbed his temples, projecting a sense of weary, harmless affliction. You think it's something in the ground? He was offering himself as the sensitive, the canary in the coal mine. A person affected by the phenomenon, not its source. Fiona's analytical mind word. Psychosomatic response to underground resonant frequencies? Possible. Or a crude attempt at misdirection. She needed data. Perhaps, she said neutrally. Tell me, during these headaches, do you perceive anything? Images? Sounds? Before he could fabricate an answer, a new voice cut through the night. There you are, Jiro. I've been looking everywhere. You stood in the doorway, a strained smile on her face. Her eyes darted between Naruto and Fiona, and Naruto could feel the spike in her emotional signature, a protective, territorial surge that shocked him with its ferocity. She had sensed the danger, the isolation, and had come to extract him. Miss Frost, you said, with a polite nod that didn't reach her eyes. I hope my cousin isn't boring you with his country stories. Not at all, Fiona replied, her smile never changing. He was just describing his acclimation issues. Most enlightening. She gave a slight, mocking bow. Do enjoy the evening. As Fiona melted back into the crowd, Ya hurried to Naruto's side. Are you all right? Who was that? She felt dangerous. She is, Naruto said quietly. She's looking for what's under the city. And she's looking at me to find it. Ya's expression hardened. The timid clerk vanished, replaced by the glint of the Thorn Princess. Then we leave. Now. But it was too late. The consequence of the encounter was already unfolding inside. Lloyd, mid-conversation, saw Fiona Frost re-enter the hall and make a subtle hand signal to a man near the entrance. A wise signal. Target acquired for further observation. The target could only be Naruto. His mission was now in direct conflict with itself. Protect the Strix cover, which now included Naruto. And obey wise orders to locate and contain the geological phenomena asset. He needed to regain control. He excused himself and found Anya, who was looking from the terrace doors to Fiona with wide, fearful eyes. Papa, the cold lady. I know, Anya, he said softly, kneeling. I need you to do something very important. It's a secret mission. Her eyes lit with terrified excitement. A mission. I need you to go to the old conservatory. The glass house in the garden. Anya's blood ran cold. That's where the loud underground feeling is strongest. I need you to just look at it. From the outside. See if it looks strange to you. Then come right back and tell me. Can you do that? It was a calculated risk. Anya's telepathy might pick up something concrete about the energy source, giving him an intelligence edge over nightfall. And it would get her away from the immediate danger of the hall. Anya, desperate to help her family, nodded fiercely. I can do it. She slipped away, a small shadow darting towards the side exit. On the terrace, Naruto felt it. A sharp, sudden tug in his gut, a psychic pull he hadn't felt since the Ninetales chakra stirred. His head snapped towards the gardens. He saw a flash of pink hair disappearing into the gloom. Anya, he breathed. What? You followed his gaze. Why would she? Naruto didn't wait. He was moving, vaulting over the stone balustrade and landing silently on the grass below, ignoring his startled gasp. The pulse from the conservatory was no longer a throb. It was a call. And Anya, with her open, telepathic mind, was walking right towards it. He ran, not with his full, impossible speed, but fast enough to blur in the twilight. He caught up to her just as she reached the ornate, rusted gate of the conservatory. The building loomed, dark and skeletal. The glass panels reflected the moon like blind eyes. Anya, stop. She turned, startled. Loud man? I'm on a mission for Papa. I have to. A deep, resonant hum emanated from the earth. The ground vibrated. The ivy on the conservatory walls trembled as if in a windless breeze. From within the absolute darkness of the structure, two pinpricks of light ignited. Not electric. Not fire. A dull, phosphorescent green. They were eyes. And they were looking directly at Anya. A wave of pure, psychic force washed out from the building, not a thought, but an emotion. A vast, lonely, centuries-old yearning. Anya screamed, clutching her head. It's looking for a friend, it's so alone, it wants to come in, it wants to come in. Naruto swept her into his arms, spinning his back to the conservatory. He pushed with everything he had, not chakra, but his own immense will, his own defiant spirit. You will not have her. The green eyes blinked. The yearning focused, shifted. From Anya to him. It recognized him. Not as a person. As a kindred force. A bright, warm sun to its cold, deep earth. The hum deepened. A single, jagged crack split the stone step before the conservatory door. Lloyd and Ya arrived at a run, their faces pale with fear. What happened? Lloyd demanded, his eyes taking in the crack, Naruto shielding Anya, the dark building. Before anyone could answer, a figure stepped from the shadows of a nearby hedge. Fiona Frost. Her data pad was in her hand, a small sensor blinking rapidly. Geological phenomena reading just spiked to Category 3, she stated, her voice devoid of all pretense. Her eyes were on Naruto. Concurrent with your proximity and elevated biometric state. Correlation, confirmed. She lifted her gaze to Lloyd. Her expression was one of professional disappointment. Twilight. You were supposed to locate and contain the asset. Not adopt it. Consequence, the fragile cover is shattered in front of a fellow agent. Anya has been psychically assaulted by the ancient entity. The entity itself has now actively identified Naruto as a person of interest. And Lloyd Forger stands exposed, his loyalties torn between his mission, his orders, and the fabricated family that now includes a terrified child, a rogue assassin, and a living geological phenomenon. The parent-teacher conference is over. The war has begun in earnest. Chapter 6, The Unkindest Cut. Time fractured. The hum from the conservatory died, leaving a ringing silence more deafening than any noise. The twin green lights winked out, plunging the Gothic structure back into passive, ivy-choked darkness. But the crack in the step remained, a black smile in the moonlight. Four sets of eyes locked onto Fiona Frost. Her revelation hung in the air like poison gas. Twilight. Lloyd Forger's face became a mask of polished marble. Every muscle, every breath, was brought under instantaneous, absolute control. The kindly psychiatrist was gone. In his place stood Twilight, Wise's top agent, his Winterlake eyes now frozen solid. His hand flew to her chest, not in her customary nervous gesture, but as if checking for a knife already buried there. The name Twilight meant nothing to her, but the shift in Lloyd, the sheer lethality that suddenly radiated from him, was a language she understood fluently. Her own body tensed, coiling, her fingers curling into the beginnings of a lethal strike. The man she thought was her gentle husband was a spy. And the woman in front of them knew it. Anya, trembling in Naruto's arms, buried her face in his neck. Her mind was a silent scream of static, the vast loneliness of the stone thing still echoing, now overlaid with the seismic shock of Papa's secret name. Asterisk Papa is Twilight. The cold lady knows. Everything is broken, asterisk. Naruto held Anya tighter, his own mind racing. The pieces slammed together. Lloyd's precision, his paranoia, his endless calculations. It wasn't just discipline. It was tradecraft. He was a spy. A really good one. And he'd been managing Naruto as an asset from the start. The betrayal was a cold knot in his gut, but it was eclipsed by the immediate threat. The woman with the datapad, Fiona, had just declared open season. Desire, Lloyd, to regain operational control, neutralize Nightfall's threat to his cover, and secure his family. Yeah, to protect Anya and understand the terrifying stranger she married. Naruto, to get Anya to safety, now. Fiona, to complete her mission and expose Twilight's sentimental compromise. Hidden obstacle, the crack in the step is not just physical. It's a bleed-through. The entity's psychic yearning has temporarily sensitized the area, amplifying emotional signatures. Fiona's sensor is picking up everything, Lloyd's cold focus, his lethal intent, Naruto's chakra flux, Anya's telepathic fallout. Nightfall, Lloyd said, the word a flat, neutral acknowledgement. Your intel is premature. The asset is under my observation. This is a delicate, ongoing operation. Fiona's lips thinned. Observation? You've integrated it into your domestic cover. You've allowed it to bond with your daughter. She spat the last word as if it were a vulgarity. Sentiment has compromised the mission. Wise orders are to contain the geological phenomena asset. I am here to execute that order. Stand aside, Twilight. Her hand moved towards the elegant clutch purse at her side. You moved faster. It was not the calculated strike of the Thorn Princess on a mission. It was a mother's feral, protective lunge. She placed herself between Fiona and Naruto, who held Anya, her posture transforming from timid to terrifyingly poised. You will not touch them, she said, her voice low and vibrating with a deadly harmony. Fiona paused, reassessing. And you are? The wife? A cruel smile touched her lips. Let me guess. Another cover. Garden? Or just a convenient civilian you've duped? You didn't flinch. I am Anya's mother. It was the truest thing she'd said all night. Lloyd saw the standoff escalating towards a point of no return. A fight here would bring security, the SSS, ruin everything. He needed to de-escalate, to reassert narrative control. Risky decision, Lloyd turns his analytical gaze on Naruto. He speaks not as Twilight to a rival, but as a handler to his most unpredictable asset. Jiro. Give Anya to ya. Then you will go with Nightfall. The words were a physical blow. Ye gasped. Anya whimpered. Naruto stared at him. What? It is the only logical course of action, Lloyd continued, his voice devoid of all warmth. Nightfall's sensor has confirmed your link to the phenomenon. Wise will quarantine and study you. Your cooperation will ensure the safety of Yet and Anya. Their association with you will be deemed coerced. They will be clean. He was offering Naruto as a sacrifice to save his operation. To save his family. The cold logic of it was impeccable. It was the perfect spy's move. Cut out the infection to save the body. Naruto felt the old, familiar ache, the ache of being the outsider, the Jinchuriki, the sacrifice. The village pariah offered up for the greater good. It was a pain he thought he'd left behind in Konoha. But this was different. He looked at Anya's tear-streaked face, at Ya's defiant, terrified stance. They weren't a village. They were a handful of broken people glued together with lies. And somehow, that felt more real. He slowly set Anya on her feet, pushing her gently towards Ya. Then he straightened, facing Lloyd. The easygoing cousin was gone. The man who stood there was a Hokage. No, Naruto said, the single word quiet but final. Lloyd's eyebrow twitched, the barest hint of surprise. It is not a request. It is the optimal strategy. Your strategy sucks, Naruto said, a flash of his old defiance breaking through. You don't hand people over to be taken apart. Not if you call them family. Even fake family. This is not a children's story. Lloyd's control slipped, a razor edge of frustration in his voice. This is the real world. People get sacrificed for the peace of millions. And that's why your world is so damn quiet. Naruto shot back, his own voice rising. He tapped his chest. I've lived that real world. I was the sacrifice. And I spent my whole life screaming to prove that there's another way. You don't build peace on broken backs. You build it by not breaking them in the first place. The crack in the step seemed to pulse faintly. The amplified emotional field drank in their conflict, their clashing convictions. Fiona watched, her sensor going wild. Fascinating. The asset exhibits a savior complex and ideological opposition to pragmatic sacrifice. Note for containment, psychological resistance will be high. Her clinical assessment was the final straw. Ya moved. Not towards Fiona, but towards Lloyd. She grabbed the lapel of his perfect suit, her strength making him stagger. You listen to me, Twilight, she hissed, her eyes blazing. That man protected my daughter. He protects your daughter. And you would trade him for your mission? What kind of peace is that? What kind of father are you? It was the question that shattered him. Lloyd looked from Ya's furious, betrayed face to Anya's terrified eyes. He saw not the components of Operation Strix, but a woman he'd come to rely on. A child he'd come to love. And his perfect, logical solution crumbled to dust under the weight of it. Fiona saw his hesitation, his fatal flaw. Compromised, she stated with finality. Her hand emerged from her purse, not with a gun, but with a sleek, pen-like cylinder. A neural disruptor. Wise non-lethal containment tech. She aimed it at Naruto. Asset, you will come with me. Now. Naruto's chakra, agitated by the emotional storm and the entity's call, finally broke through its dam. It wasn't a massive surge. It was a whisper. A faint, golden glow outlined his body for an instant. But in the sensitized environment, it was a lightning strike. Fiona's sensor emitted a piercing shriek and died, its circuits fried. The neural disruptor in her hand sparked and grew hot, forcing her to drop it. The crack in the conservatory step widened with an audible groan. From its depths, a wisp of that same, phosphorescent green energy curled upwards like seeking smoke. It drifted towards Naruto. And Anya, her mind still wide open, was the bridge. The wisp touched the edge of Naruto's fading chakra glow. And through Anya's telepathy, a voice, not in words, but in pure, geologically slow concept, impressed itself on all of them. Image, a vast, crystalline network buried deep beneath Astania. Feeling, a song of stability, of deep earth memory. Snap, a fracture, decades ago. A surgical, violent severing. Emotion, a profound, disorienting amnesia. A limb gone numb. Sight, Naruto, a bright, warm, whole point of light. The entity wasn't hostile. It was amputated. And it recognized Naruto's energy as kin. As a potential healer. The vision lasted a second. Then the green wisp dissipated. But the revelation changed everything. Fiona, shaken, looked from the dead sensor to the crack. It's not just a power source, it's sentient. And it's communicating. Lloyd, reeling from the psychic broadcast, looked at Naruto with entirely new eyes. The asset wasn't a random anomaly. He was a key. Consequence, the fragile alliances have been obliterated and forcibly remade. Lloyd's authority is broken by his challenge and his own revealed sentiment. Fiona's clean containment mission is now a complex diplomatic issue with a sentient geological entity. Naruto is no longer just a refugee or an asset, he is a conduit and a potential diplomat to a forgotten power beneath the city. And the secret is no longer who is a spy or an assassin, but what happens when the foundation of a nation is not rock, but a sleeping, broken giant that has just woken up and found a friend. Chapter 7, The Table of Truce. The psychic echo of the conservatory entity faded, leaving behind a ringing silence more profound than before. The 4 adults and 1 child stood in the moonlit garden, bound together by shattered secrets and the impossible vision now branded on their minds. Fiona Frost was the first to rebuild her composure, the pieces of her mission reassembling into a new, more dangerous configuration. She straightened her jacket, her violet eyes calculating as they swept over the group. Sentient, she repeated, the word clinical. A Class X extra-normal event. This exceeds my mandate for simple containment. Lloyd found his voice, the twilight persona reforging itself, tempered now by undeniable, inconvenient data. Your mandate is irrelevant, Nightfall. The situation is under my operational purview. Your purview is compromised, Fiona shot back, but the bite was gone, replaced by cold analysis. The entity has established a parasocial link with your household. Any aggressive action against the key, her gaze flicked to Naruto, or its associates, may be interpreted as hostility by the entity. The risk of a catastrophic geological response is now a primary factor. They were talking around the emotional crater between them, retreating into the sterile language of risk assessment and mission parameters. It was the only common ground left. Ye still held Anya close, her body a rigid barrier between her daughter and the 2 spies. She understood perhaps 5 words in 10 of their technical exchange, but she grasped the core truth: Anya was in the center of this. The thing in the ground had touched her mind. And these people saw her child as a variable in an equation. Stop, Ye said, her voice cutting through the professional jargon. It wasn't loud, but it carried the quiet authority of a woman who ended arguments with broken spines. You are not deciding our fates in this garden. We are going inside. We are sitting down. And you, she glared at Lloyd and Fiona, will explain everything. To all of us. It was a demand, not a request. From the wife. The civilian. The assassin. Desire, yeah, to reclaim agency, to protect her child from being a pawn. Lloyd, to regain strategic control of a spiraling scenario. Fiona, to secure the unprecedented asset, Naruto and the entity, 4 wise. Naruto, to understand the broken thing under the city and find a way to help it without getting anyone dissected. Hidden obstacle, the SSS surveillance team, monitoring the Forger apartment, has tracked their prolonged absence and anomalous energy spike at Eden. They are moving to investigate. They reconvened in the Forger living room, a stage set now hosting a drama its designer never intended. The floral wallpaper seemed to mock them. Lloyd made tea with automatic precision. Fiona sat rigidly on the edge of the sofa, a hawk in a canary's cage. Ye kept Anya in her lap on the armchair. Naruto stood by the window, watching the street, his posture that of a guard on duty. Anya was silent, for once. The torrent of thoughts had condensed into a hard, cold pebble of understanding in her mind. Papa is a spy. The cold lady is a spy. Mama is something scary. Loud man is from another world. And the big sad rock underground is my friend now. It was too much. She buried her face in Ye's shoulder. Start, Ye commanded Lloyd. And so, Twilight briefed his wife. He laid out operations tricks with brutal clarity: the need to get close to Donovan Desmond, the fabrication of the family, Anya's role as a student at Eden. He revealed Wise, his codename, the architecture of lies their lives were built upon. He omitted only the garden and Ya's own secret, a final, fragile courtesy. Ya listened, her face pale. Each revelation was a scalpel cut. Her husband was a fiction. Her marriage a mission. Yet, the love she felt for Anya in his voice when he spoke of her safety, that was the only real thing in the torrent of deceit. It was the splinter she clung to. When he finished, Ya turned her gaze to Fiona. And you? Agent Nightfall. Wise. My mission was to locate and contain the source of anomalous energy readings, codenamed geological phenomena. That mission is now obsolete. The presence of a sentient entity and its connection to Mr. Uzumaki, she glanced at Naruto, having finally pried his real name from Lloyd during the walk back, creates a unique diplomatic and strategic opportunity. Or an existential threat. All eyes turned to Naruto. The outsider. The key. He kept looking out the window. I told you I was lost, he said quietly. My world has chakra. It's energy. It's in people, in the land. What's under the city, it feels like chakra, but it's asleep. It's hurt. That vision it showed us? It's like a limb got cut off. It's not evil. It's in pain. What does it want? Lloyd asked, the psychiatrist analyzing the patient even now. Naruto finally turned from the window. His blue eyes were serious. It wants to be whole. And I think, it thinks I can help. Risky decision, Fiona, seeing no viable path to forceful containment, proposes a new, radical alliance. Wise must recalibrate, she announced. Twilight's cover, while compromised internally, remains externally viable. More so now. The presence of a cousin with unique talents provides a plausible smokescreen for investigating the entity without alerting the SSS or the garden. She looked at Lloyd. Your mission parameters are amended. You will continue Operation Strix, with the added objective of facilitating contact and study of the entity, using Mr. Uzumaki as an intermediary. I will act as your Wise liaison and handler for this sub-operation. Codename, Bedrock. It was a stunning pivot. She was legitimizing the mess, folding it back into the mission. She was also inserting herself directly into Lloyd's life. Lloyd saw the logic instantly. It was their only way forward. It kept Wise from seeing him as rogue, it provided resources, and it gave a framework to manage the unmanageable. But it meant ceding authority to Nightfall in his own home. And our safety? Ya asked, her arm tightening around Anya. You talk about study and contact. What happens when this Bedrock decides my daughter is a useful test subject? Anya's well-being is integral to mission stability, Fiona replied, though her tone suggested she saw the child as a volatile piece of equipment. However, her demonstrated psychic sensitivity is a significant intelligence asset. It cannot be ignored. She's a child. Ya's voice cracked. She's a telepath who just established a three-way psychic link with an ancient entity and a human energy conduit, Fiona stated flatly. Ignoring that fact is a greater danger than studying it. Before Ya could erupt, Naruto stepped forward. I have a condition, he said, his voice leaving no room for debate. He pointed at Anya. She is off limits. No tests. No missions. No using her as a canary in a coal mine. You want to study the connection, you study me. You want to talk to the thing underground, I'll talk to it. You keep her out of it, or I walk out that door right now and let your entity know exactly who tried to hurt its little friend. He was bluffing. He didn't know how to contact the entity deliberately. But he poured every ounce of his conviction into the threat. The memory of his own childhood as a lab rat in all but name fueled his fire. Fiona assessed him. The bluff was transparent to her, but the protective intent was not. It was a powerful, predictable lever. Acceptable, she conceded. The child's involvement will be passive and monitored only for her own safety. Lloyd gave a single, tight nod. The terms of the truce were set. A shaky, desperate coalition formed in the heart of the lie. It was then that Naruto, from his post by the window, saw the consequence of their delay. A dark, unmarked sedan rolled to a stop across the street. Two men in plain clothes got out. They didn't look up at the apartment. They just leaned against the car, smoking. Their posture was all wrong for loiterers. Too still. Too observant. Lloyd, Naruto said, not turning around. We have company. Two men. Sedan. They're not leaving. Lloyd was at his side in an instant, peering through the slats of the blinds. SSS. Standard surveillance pattern. They're waiting for a trigger. The energy spike at the school, Fiona deduced. They've correlated it with the Forger family's presence. They're here to see what happens next. The fragile truce was about to be stress-tested. We need a normality protocol, Lloyd said, his mind clicking into operational gear. A mundane reason for our late return and any residual stress. He looked at Ye, then at Naruto. A family argument. Ye understood immediately. The performance was back on. But now, the lines between performance and reality were irreparably blurred. Jiro, Lloyd instructed, you will go to your room and slam the door. Yeah, you will be upset, talking loudly about inconsiderate relatives. I will be the conciliatory one. Nightfall. I was never here, Fiona said, already moving towards the fire escape. I will monitor from a distance. Remember, Twilight, Bedrock is now your primary objective. Do not let the SSS compromise it. She slipped out the window and was gone. Minutes later, the sound of a raised voice, channeling very real fury, a slammed door, Naruto, with feeling and soothing murmurs, Lloyd, the master negotiator, emanated from the apartment for the benefit of the listeners below. Inside the guest room, Naruto sat on the bed, listening to the performance. The headache was back, a steady drumbeat synchronized with the distant, pained pulse from deep below. The entity was waiting. It had made its plea. And he had just agreed, in a roundabout way, to try and help it. A god of stone in memory, sleeping under a city of spies. He looked at his hands. A faint, desperate hope kindled in his chest. For the first time since he'd arrived, his purpose was clear. He wasn't just surviving. He wasn't just protecting a little girl. He was going to heal a broken world. Again. Down the hall, in Anya's room, Ye tucked her into bed. Anya's thoughts were a sleepy, confused murmur. So many secrets. But Loud Man's secret is the biggest. He wants to fix the big sad rock. I hope he can. Maybe then we can all stop lying, Ye kissed her forehead, her heart a turmoil of fear and a strange, defiant pride. Her family was a tapestry of lies, woven with threads of espionage, assassination, and otherworldly energy. But the man in the guest room, the loud, brash, impossible man, was fighting to protect the truth of a child's safety. And for now, that was the only truth that mattered. Outside, the SSS agents noted the domestic dispute and settled in for a long watch. The anomaly was quiet, for now. But the night was young, and the ground beneath their feet was no longer solid. Consequence, a tense, four-way alliance is forged under the shadow of the SSS. Naruto has a mission, heal the entity. Lloyd must balance his original objective with the new, world-altering one. Ye must protect her daughter from allies as much as enemies. And Anya, the silent nexus of it all, holds the psychic key to a conversation that could shatter a nation's foundations. The table of truce is set, but the first real test, deceiving the watchers at the door, has only just begun. Chapter 8, The First Fracture. The performance for the SSS was a success. The staged argument painted a picture of a normal, stressed family, a country cousin causing friction, a wife at her wit's end, a calm husband mediating. By morning, the surveillance sedan was gone, their report likely reading, subject household, no anomalous activity. Domestic discord noted. But inside the Forger apartment, the new normal was a fragile, humming tension. Breakfast was a silent ballet. Lloyd cooked with mechanical efficiency, his mind clearly elsewhere, processing the seismic shift in his mission parameters. Ye moved with a new wariness, her eyes constantly checking on Anya, who pushed her scrambled eggs around her plate. Naruto ate quickly, his gaze distant, tuned to the subterranean pulse that had become a constant, low-grade thrum in his bones. The entity was quieter after its outburst, but it was no longer sleeping. It was listening. Desire, Naruto, to make contact with the entity, to understand its pain without endangering the others. Lloyd, to establish a secure protocol for Project Bedrock that doesn't implode operations tricks. Yeah, to find solid ground as a mother in a house of shifting lies. Anya, for someone, anyone, to tell her a truth that isn't scary. Hidden obstacle, the fracture in the entity is not a natural geological event. The psychic vision hinted at its surgical severing. Someone, decades ago, intentionally wounded it. That someone, or their legacy, may still be active and will notice its awakening. Fiona Frost, true to her word, did not reappear. Her presence was felt only in the form of a sealed, encrypted file delivered by a hollow-eyed courier pretending to read a meter. Lloyd decoded it in his study. It contained Wise's historical intelligence on geological phenomena, scattered reports of ground tremors with no seismic cause, localized zones of emotional disturbance reported by civilians, and one declassified, redacted file from the Great War era referencing a secret Austanian project called Das Fundament, the Foundation. The file on Das Fundament was mostly black ink. The surviving fragments were chilling. Subject exhibits non-terrestrial energetic properties. Stabilization of the national psyche postulated, requires periodic harmonic recalibration. The final line before the redaction began was, Project leads, Dr. Ella Forger and Dr. H. Desmond. Lloyd stared at the names. Forger. A coincidence? A namesake? Or was the identity he'd chosen for this mission a sick joke played by fate or by Wise's archivists? And H. Desmond. Donovan's father. The current target's lineage was tied directly to the entity. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was the inheritance of someone else's sin. He needed to talk to Naruto. The asset was now the central piece of a historical mystery. He found him on the fire escape, of all places. Naruto was sitting on the grated platform, eyes closed, face tilted towards the weak morning sun. He looked less like a soldier and more like a man trying to photosynthesize answers. "We need to establish parameters for contact," Lloyd said, dispensing with preamble. He handed Naruto a heavily sanitized summary of the DOS fundament file, omitting the names. Naruto read it slowly, his brow furrowing. They were experimenting on it. Using it. Like a battery for the whole country's mood? The concept was grotesque to him. In his world, such natural energy sources were sacred, places of meditation and balance. It appears so. And the surgical severing you felt likely occurred when the project was terminated or went wrong. The entity's amnesia and pain could be a result of that trauma. Lloyd's voice was analytical, but a sliver of something else, perhaps revulsion at the scale of the violation, bled through. Your objective, as per Nightfall's directive, is to establish controlled communication. To ascertain its intentions and its potential for stability or destabilization. Naruto looked up, his blue eyes piercing. My objective is to help it. You can call it whatever you want. Helping it could mean calming it. Putting it back to sleep, Lloyd countered. Or it could mean healing the wound and letting it be whole again. Which might make it not calm. You prepared for that? Lloyd had no answer. Wise's orders were for containment and study, not liberation. Liberation was an unpredictable variable. Risky decision, Naruto decides to attempt contact without Lloyd's controlled protocol. He needs to feel the truth of the entity directly, without the filter of spy agencies and historical sin. I'm going for a walk, Naruto announced, standing up. The SSS. Won't see anything strange about the troublesome cousin going out to clear his head, Naruto finished. I'll be careful. I just need to listen. Lloyd wanted to forbid it. Every instinct screamed to control the variable. But control had already slipped through his fingers. He gave a curt nod. Keep your mental shields up. If you feel anything anomalous, disengage and return. Do not, under any circumstances, manifest visible energy effects. Naruto's walk was aimless, yet his feet carried him with a gravitational pull away from the bustling city center, towards the older, quieter districts with their cobblestones and crumbling facades. The underground pulse was a compass in his soul. It grew stronger, more pained, as he approached a dilapidated quarter slated for redevelopment. The air here felt thick, stale. He found himself in a deserted square dominated by a massive, derelict public fountain. The basin was dry, filled with trash. In the center, a stone statue of a robed figure once poured water from an urn, but the urn was broken, the figure's face eroded by acid rain and time. This was the place. The pain was acute here, a phantom limb screaming. Naruto sat on the edge of the dry basin, closed his eyes, and did what he'd always done with the Ninetales, he reached out. Not with a technique, but with raw intent. He lowered the feeble internal walls he'd built against the alien pulse and let his own chakra, a tiny, warm, steady flame, shine in the dark of his mind. Hey, he thought, the way he'd once spoken to the fox in the darkness of his gut. I can feel you hurting. The response was not a voice. It was a sinking feeling. The ground beneath him didn't move, but his perception dropped, plummeting through layers of stone and history. He saw flashes. Glowing crystals humming in a man-made cavern. Men in lab coats adjusting dials on brutalist machines. A sharp, screeching frequency, a harmonic recalibration gone wrong, slicing through a network of light. A scream of stone. Then, silence. And cold. And a forgetting. The entity showed him its memory of the wound. And then, it showed him what it remembered of before. A sense of vast, slow contentment. A deep connection to the life above, not to individual minds, but to the collective hum of a city, the pulse of its seasons, the weight of its dreams and sorrows absorbed in balance like sediment. It wasn't a god. It was a foundation. A living bedrock that stabilized the very soul of the land. Das Fundament had not created it. They had found it. And then they had tried to turn a heart into a pacemaker. And they had broken it. Naruto's eyes flew open, tears pricking at the corners. The loneliness he felt wasn't just the entities, it was the loneliness of the entire city above, cut off from the ground that was meant to hold it, subsisting on a fractured, unstable piece. He now understood. Healing it wasn't an option. It was a moral imperative. But as he sat there, reeling from the shared memory, he failed to notice he was not alone. Across the square, in the shadow of a boarded-up cafe, a man watched. He was elderly, dressed in a worn but clean coat, leaning on a cane. He had seen Naruto sit and go perfectly still for 20 minutes. He had seen the single tear track its way down the young man's cheek. And he had felt, in his own old bones, a faint, forgotten tremor in the earth. The old man's name was Heinrich. 60 years ago, he had been a junior technician on Das Fundament. He had been there for the recalibration. He had seen the lights and the crystals go out. He had spent a lifetime trying to forget the sound he'd heard that day, a sound not in his ears, but in his teeth. And now, a blonde stranger sat at the epicenter of the old wound and cried. Heinrich's heart, long numb, hammered against his ribs. The project was not forgotten. It was waking up. Consequence, Naruto has achieved first contact and gained a devastating understanding of the entity's true nature and the crime committed against it. But his unapproved mission has been witnessed. The past, in the form of Heinrich, has stirred. And the old man, terrified and carrying decades of guilt, won't just report to the authorities. He'll report to the only other person he knows who might understand, the sole surviving senior project lead, a man who built his political empire on the silenced scream of a living foundation, Donovan Desmond's father, now residing in a secluded sanatorium. The secret is out, and its keeper is running not for cover, but for confirmation. Chapter 9, The Past is a Predator. The walk back to the apartment was a blur. Naruto moved through the city streets like a ghost, the vivid, painful memories of the entity superimposed over the mundane reality of shoppers and traffic. The weight of what he'd learned was a physical pressure on his shoulders, the loneliness of the bedrock, the clinical violence of the recalibration, the decades of silent suffering beneath a city that had never known its heart was broken. He arrived to find the apartment in a state of high-alert normalcy. Ya was dusting with ferocious intensity. Anya was attempting to read a picture book, her thoughts a skittish, scattered thing. Lloyd was at the window, his back rigid. The moment Naruto closed the door, Lloyd turned. His expression was ice, but his eyes were live wires. You were gone for 1 hour and 43 minutes. You established a pattern of 3 left turns and 2 right, deviating into a derelict zone with 0 pedestrian traffic. Explain. The interrogation was pure twilight. The concerned cousin was gone. Naruto didn't flinch. He met Lloyd's gaze, his own still haunted. I talked to it. Or it talked to me. It showed me what happened. He didn't wait for permission. In blunt, stark terms, he described the memory flashes, the crystalline network, the lab, the screeching frequency, the severing. He told them what the entity was before, a stabilizer, a living foundation for the land's spirit. He told them what Das Fundament had done. Ya stopped dusting, her hand pressed to her mouth. Anya's book slid to the floor. Asterisk, they heard it. They broke it on purpose. Like the bad men in the labs, asterisk, her mind whispered, drawing a parallel to her own past that made her small frame tremble. Lloyd absorbed the report without a flicker of emotion, but his mind was a storm. This changed everything. The entity wasn't a hazard, it was a victim of state-sanctioned mutilation. Its potential destabilization was actually a cry of pain from a crippled system. Wise's containment orders were not just amoral, they were a continuation of the original crime. But admitting that changed nothing. His orders stood. Operation Strix, now intertwined with Bedrock, required him to get close to the Desmonds, the family that profited from this atrocity. You were observed, Lloyd stated, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. Naruto blinked. What? An elderly male, approximately 70 meters northwest of your position. He watched you for the duration of your communion. He departed in haste after you left. Lloyd had not been idle. He'd tracked Naruto's route via city maps and a small tracker slipped into his coat pocket, a precaution Naruto hadn't detected. Describe him. Naruto's blood ran cold. He'd been so immersed, he'd let his guard down completely. Old. Coat. Cane. I didn't feel any malice, just shock. A witness from the past, Lloyd deduced grimly. A surviving technician. He will report this. The question is, to whom? Desire, Lloyd, to contain the fallout from Naruto's contact and re-establish operational security. Naruto, to act, to find a way to heal the entity before more technicians intervene. Ya, to shield Anya from the ugliness of the past now crashing into their present. Hidden obstacle, Heinrich is not going to the SSS. He is seeking absolution from the only authority he believes can handle the truth, the retired, ailing former project co-lead, Hermann Desmond, Donovan's father. The Desmond family will know about the entity's awakening within hours. We have to move, Naruto said, a fire lighting in his eyes. We can't let them hurt it again. We have to find the place, the original facility. We have to try to fix the break. You are proposing an unsanctioned, high-risk incursion into what is likely a highly classified and guarded Austanian black site, based on 60-year-old psychic memories, to perform an operation you have no training for, on a geological entity of unknown power, Lloyd summarized, his tone flat. That is not a mission. It is a suicide pact that would burn Operation Strix to the ground. It's the right thing to do. Naruto's voice rose, his chakra flickering involuntarily, making the lamplight in the room gutter. Right things do not exist in a vacuum. Lloyd shot back, a rare crack of frustration in his controlled facade. There is a child in this room. There is a fragile peace between two nations that hangs on a knife's edge. Your right thing could trigger a war or a geological catastrophe that kills millions. And leaving it broken is okay? It is stable. The word hung between them, vile and final. Ya had heard enough. She stepped between them, facing Lloyd. Her eyes were not those of a nervous wife, but of a woman who had made life and death decisions in the dark. He's not a tool, Lloyd. And neither are we. You built this family to stop a war. But what if the war is already here? Not between East and West, but between the people and the ground they stand on? What if fixing that is the real peace? It was the most profound thing she had ever said. It silenced the room. Lloyd stared at her, truly seeing her for the first time, not as the clumsy Briar or the lethal Thorn princess, but as a woman of startling, untapped moral clarity. She had cut to the core of the dilemma. Anya slid off the couch and walked to Naruto, taking his hand. She looked up at Lloyd, her green eyes huge and serious. Papa, her thought voice was small but clear in the tense quiet. Asterisk, the loud man is sad. The big rock is sadder. We have to help. We're a family. Families help, asterisk. It was a child's logic. Unassailable. Lloyd Forger, Twilight, Master Spy, felt the last of his purely strategic resistance crumble. He was outvoted by a psychic child, an assassin with a heart, and a dimensional refugee with a savior complex. The mission was no longer his to define. It had been hijacked by sentiment, by morality, by the very bonds he'd fabricated. He took a long, slow breath. The gears in his mind began to turn again, not to suppress the new objective, but to achieve it. We will need 3 things, he said, his voice returning to its cool, analytical tone. First, the exact location of the original Das Fundament facility. Second, a plausible cover for our absence and activities. Third, a way to mitigate the entity's potential volatility during any attempt at healing. He looked at Naruto. You are the key to the first and the third. I will handle the second. Risky decision, Lloyd decides to use Operation Strix as a shield for Operation Bedrock. He will leverage his growing connection to Donovan Desmond to request a historical tour of his father's old, decommissioned research estates, a show of intellectual curiosity from a fellow man of science. It's a brazen, high-wire act that puts the mission directly in the lion's den. He went to his study to craft the request. It was a dangerous gambit. It would alert Donovan Desmond that Lloyd Forger had an interest in his father's old work. But it was the only way to get legitimate access. While he worked, Naruto sat with Anya on the couch. I need your help, kiddo, he said softly. The next time I try to talk to the big rock, I need you to be my translator. Not with words. Just, tell me if it's scared. Or angry. If the pain is getting worse. Can you do that? Anya nodded, her expression solemn. Asterisk, I can hear its feelings. They're big and slow and hurt. I'll tell you, asterisk. You watched them, a knot of fear and pride in her chest. She went to the kitchen and began sharpening a paring knife with meticulous, deadly focus. Her role in this was clear. She would be the scalpel that cut through any physical obstacles. She was no longer just playing a part. This was her mission now, too. Across the city, in an opulent, sterile sanatorium room, Heinrich the old technician was whispering his story to a withered man propped up in a bed. Hermann Desmond's eyes, clouded by age and medication, sharpened with a frightening, lucid intensity as Heinrich spoke of the blonde stranger at the dry fountain. The foundation stirs, Hermann rasped, his voice like dry leaves. The harmonic balance, disrupted. The Forger boy, you are sure? The location, sir. The feeling. It was him. Hermann Desmond's gnarled hand pressed a button on his bedside console. A nurse entered. Get my son, he commanded. Tell him the past has come knocking. And it has brought a key. Consequence, the lines are drawn. The Forger household has unified around a new, dangerous purpose, healing the entity. But their plan requires walking into the heart of the Desmond power structure. Donovan Desmond is now aware that his family's deepest, darkest secret is active again, and that a man named Forger is sniffing around it. The stage is set for a collision not of spies, but of legacies, between the son who inherited a broken world and the found family that has decided to fix it. Chapter 10, The Invitation to the Lair. Donovan Desmond did not summon Lloyd Forger to his office. The invitation arrived 2 days later, embossed on heavy cream cardstock, delivered by a silent chauffeur. It was not for a meeting, but for a weekend retreat at the Desmond family's private alpine lodge. An opportunity for discourse away from the city's clamor, the note read. Your family is, of course, welcome. The mountain air is restorative. It was a masterstroke. Isolated, controlled territory. A place where guests could vanish or have accidents. It was also a perfect opportunity for Lloyd. He knows, Lloyd said, placing the invitation on the coffee table like a live grenade. Or he strongly suspects. This is a test. A trap dressed as hospitality. Ya picked up the card, her fingers tracing the embossed crest. A lodge. Remote. Easily secured, or isolated. Her assassin's mind saw the tactical reality, limited escape routes, Desmond-controlled staff, potential for hunting accidents. Anya, peeking at the card, felt a chill. Asterisk the man with the scary quiet mind. He wants to look at us. All of us. He's curious about loud man asterisk. Naruto crossed his arms, leaning against the wall. So we're walking into his house. Good. Let's us look for clues about the facility. It's probably somewhere on the grounds. It's not a treasure hunt, Lloyd said sharply. It's a high-stakes psychological and strategic duel. One misstep, one hint of unnatural ability, and we become permanent guests of the Desmonds. In their basement. Desire, Lloyd, to navigate the retreat, gather intelligence on the Das Fundament facility, and protect his family, all while maintaining his cover. Naruto, to find the source of the entity's pain. Yeah, to be the unseen weapon at her family's back. Anya, to not think any loud thoughts about rocks or mind reading. Hidden obstacle, Fiona Frost, Nightfall, has been ordered by Wise to observe the retreat from afar. She is not briefed on the true nature of Bedrock and believes Lloyd is pursuing a strategic advantage with Desmond. Her presence is a wildcard, and her loyalty is to the mission, not the family. The preparation was meticulous. Lloyd drilled them on their roles. He was the ambitious but principled psychiatrist, keen to learn from a great mind. Ya was the doting, slightly out-of-her-depth wife. Anya was the precocious child. Naruto was the rugged, somewhat simple but loyal cousin, along for the mountain air. Your chakra, Lloyd said to Naruto on the eve of their departure. It must be completely suppressed. The entity's pulse may be stronger in the mountains, closer to the source. You cannot react to it. You cannot glow. Do you understand? Naruto gave a grim nod. He'd been practicing, trying to wall off the guttering flame inside. It was like trying to hold his breath indefinitely. The lodge was not a lodge. It was a fortress of timber and stone, clinging to a jagged peak like a raptor's nest. The air was thin and sharp, scented of pine and impending snow. As their car navigated the final, winding approach, Naruto felt it, the entity's pain was clearer here, a sharp, dissonant chord underlying the majestic silence. The wound was close. Donovan Desmond greeted them on the great stone porch. He was a tall, austere man, his presence a vacuum that sucked the warmth from the sunny day. His smile was a slight rearrangement of facial muscles. Dr. Forger. A pleasure to escape the city with you. His gray eyes swept over Ya, Anya, and lingered on Naruto. And your family. How robust. The weekend was a slow, elegant torture. Lavish meals where conversation was a fencing match. Scenic walks along pre-approved paths with silent guards just within tree line. Evenings by the fire where Desmond probed Lloyd's theories on national psychology and the foundations of stable society. Naruto played his part, mostly by staying silent and eating with gusto. He kept his senses tuned inward, monitoring the painful pulse. It was directional. It pulled him away from the lodge, towards the older, more rugged part of the mountain behind the main compound. A place marked on no tour. Ya, in her role, stuck close to Anya, but her eyes were constantly mapping sightlines, potential weapons, a fireplace poker, a heavy candlestick, and the rhythms of the discreet security staff. She felt Desmond's gaze on her like a physical weight. He was assessing her, not as a woman, but as a component of Lloyd's facade. On the second afternoon, during a family nature walk chaperoned by a guide, Anya slipped on a patch of ice. Naruto caught her before she fell, his movement a blur of instinct. The guide, a stern woman with eyes that missed nothing, went very still. Quick reflexes, Mr. Forger. Farm boy, Naruto grunted, setting Anya down and ruffling her hair. Used to catching runaway piglets. He offered a lopsided, disarming grin. The guide's suspicion didn't fade, but she nodded curtly. Later, in the suite they shared, Lloyd confronted him. That was too fast. You're not a farm boy here. You're a city dweller with a bad knee from your military service. Remember your cover. She was going to fall, Naruto said, unrepentant. Risky decision. That night, Naruto can't stand the inaction. The entity's pain is a constant scream in his soul, muted but incessant. He waits until the lodge is silent, then slips from his room. Not towards the forbidden area, but to the lodge's vast, glass-walled library, hoping to find maps, old journals, anything about the mountain's history. The library was dark, lit only by moonlight streaming through the windows. He moved silently, his shinobi training taking over. He found a section on local geology and family history. As he pulled a heavy, leather-bound volume titled Desmond Holdings, a chronicle, a hidden panel in the shelving beside him clicked open. It was a small, recessed space. Inside was not a book, but a single, aged schematic, rolled into a tube. His heart hammered. He carefully unrolled it on a reading table. It was a blueprint of the mountain. And there, marked in precise, technical hand, was a sub-level complex labeled Sector Fundament, Harmonisch Stabilisierung. An arrow pointed to a secondary, deeper chamber, marked with a red stamp, Geschlossen. Unstable. Closed. Unstable. The facility. And the sealed, unstable chamber had to be the source of the wound, the site of the recalibration. As he memorized the layout, a floorboard creaked behind him. He didn't turn. He let his shoulders slump, affecting the posture of a bored man. Couldn't sleep. Figured I'd read up on the family that owns the mountain. Impressive stuff. He slowly turned, expecting a guard. It was Donovan Desmond. He stood in a dressing gown, his face in shadow. The restless country cousin, he said, his voice soft. I often find myself here at night. The silence of history is profound. He glided forward, his eyes on the schematic Naruto had not yet fully re-rolled. You have an interest in engineering? Just curious, Naruto said, keeping his voice deliberately dull. Looks complicated. It was, Desmond said, reaching out a hand. Naruto had no choice but to give him the blueprint. Desmond glanced at it, then back at Naruto. A failed project from my father's time. An attempt to harness the mountain's natural resonance. It proved too volatile. A reminder that some foundations are best left undisturbed. Their eyes met. In Desmond's gray gaze, Naruto saw no suspicion about the blueprint. Instead, he saw a deep, chilling curiosity. Desmond wasn't worried about the secret being found. He was evaluating the finder. Rest is important, Mr. Forger, Desmond said, re-rolling the schematic and tucking it into his gown. The mountain can be disorienting to those unaccustomed to its personality. Sleep well. He left as silently as he'd arrived. Naruto stood frozen in the moonlight. It hadn't been a confrontation. It had been a warning. And a confirmation. Desmond knew exactly what he was looking for. The trap wasn't to catch them in a lie. It was to see how close they would get to the truth. Back in the suite, he relayed the encounter to Lloyd in a hushed whisper. Lloyd's face was grim in the dark. He's hurting us. He wants to see what we do with the information. The retreat ends tomorrow. Our window to act is closing. We have to go to the facility. Tonight, Naruto insisted. It's what he expects. It's suicide. Then we do the unexpected. It was Yev who spoke from the doorway to the adjoining room. She was already dressed in dark, close-fitting clothes. You two go to the facility. Create the diversion he expects. Lloyd and Naruto stared at her. What? Lloyd asked. I will be the unexpected, you said, her voice calm and lethal. While he watches for you to break into the old project site, I will break into his private study here in the lodge. If there are secrets about how they wounded the entity, or how to control it, they won't be in the unstable chamber. They'll be with him. It was a brilliant, dangerous split. It played on Desmond's assumption that the men were the threat and the woman was decoration. Lloyd assessed her, seeing not Breyer, but an asset of unimaginable potential. Can you do it? Ya's smile was a blade. He'll never see me coming. Consequence, the plan is set, fracturing the family unit in the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Naruto and Lloyd will make a deliberate, noisy approach to the Das Fundament facility as the primary diversion. You will perform a high-stakes, solo infiltration of Donovan Desmond's personal quarters. Anya, the linchpin, will remain in the suite with Bonman, her telepathy their only secure communication link, praying her parents' thoughts don't suddenly go silent. The entity's painful pulse quickens, as if sensing the approaching convergence at the site of its ancient wound. Chapter 11, The Diversion and the Dagger. The Mountain Knight was a living, breathing entity of its own, a vast, frozen silence broken only by the groan of ancient timber and the distant scream of wind over stone. In their suite, the Forger family made their final preparations in hushed tones. Lloyd checked a compact, custom-made lockpick set and a slim, powerful flashlight. Naruto stretched, his joints popping softly, focusing on keeping the chakra flame banked to mere embers. The entity's pulse was a frantic, pain drumbeat here, vibrating up through the rock and into his very bones. It knew they were close. Ya tied her hair back with a simple black ribbon. She wore no distinctive outfit, just dark, flexible clothing that could be explained as sleepwear if she was seen. Her eyes held a flat, focused calm that made her look like a stranger. She knelt before Anya, who was clutching Bonman, her small face pale. You must be the bravest one, Anya, Ya whispered, her voice soft but iron steady. Stay here. Listen with your special ears. If you hear Papa or Loudman thinking about serious danger, or if you hear the scary man's thoughts coming towards this room, you hide. You remember the hiding spot we practiced? Anya nodded, a tear escaping. Asterisk, I'll be brave. I'll listen. Please be careful, Mama, asterisk. You kissed her forehead, a gesture of such fierce tenderness it contradicted her lethal posture. She looked at Lloyd. Give us 15 minutes to get into position. Then begin your diversion. Lloyd met her gaze. 1,000 instructions, warnings, and unspoken sentiments hung between them. All he said was, do not be seen. He slipped out the balcony door and vanished into the shadows clinging to the lodge's outer wall, moving with a preternatural grace that left no sound, dislodging not a single icicle. Desire, Lloyd and Naruto, to draw all attention to the old facility. Yeah, to find the core secret in Desmond's den. Anya, to be the family's silent, psychic anchor. Hidden obstacle, the sealed chamber is not just unstable, it is guarded by an automated system keyed to the entity's distress. Approaching it risks triggering a catastrophic harmonic feedback that could literally shatter the mountain. Lloyd and Naruto took the more direct, foolish route through the main lodge's lower levels, towards a service door that, according to the blueprint, led to the older tunnels. They made just enough noise to be noticed, a muffled curse from Naruto, the too loud click of Lloyd's flashlight. As they reached a heavy, iron-banded door leading into the bedrock, a voice echoed from the shadows behind them. The archives are in the other wing, gentlemen. It was the stern female guide from the walk. She stepped into the dim light, a compact submachine gun held low and professional at her side. 2 more guards materialized behind her. Desmond's security had been waiting. Lloyd raised his hand slowly, the picture of a caught academic. A moment of indiscretion, I apologize. My cousin's curiosity about the old engineering, it's my fault for mentioning it. The guide's smile was thin. Mr. Desmond anticipated your academic interest. He invites you to view the project site. Properly escorted, of course. This was the expected trap. They were being herded exactly where Desmond wanted them. It was time to play their part. They were marched down a rough-hewn tunnel that sloped deep into the mountain's gut. The air grew colder, smelling of damp rock and ozone. The painful pulse Naruto felt intensified, becoming a physical pressure in his ears. The walls here were not natural, they were smooth, fused stone, lined with dead conduit and the skeletal remains of old wiring. They entered a vast, cylindrical chamber. It was a cathedral of failed ambition. In the center stood a massive, cracked crystal column, now dark and lifeless. Around it were the carcasses of control consoles, their dials frozen. This was the main chamber of DOS Fundament. The air hummed with residual, twisted energy. Donovan Desmond stood before the dead crystal, his back to them. The heart of the mountain, he said, his voice echoing. Or what we thought was its heart. My father believed he could tune it. Use its resonance to harmonize the national spirit. Eliminate discord. He turned, his gray eyes gleaming in the backup emergency lights. But a heart cannot be tuned. It can only be broken. He was not talking to Lloyd. He was looking at Naruto. You feel it, don't you? Desmond asked, taking a step closer. The instability. The pain. You are sensitive to it. More than any technician we ever had. Naruto remained silent, clenching his fists. My father's project was not a failure of engineering, Desmond continued, circling them like a professor giving a lecture. It was a failure of understanding. You cannot make a wild thing serve without breaking its spirit. And a broken spirit becomes a poison. He gestured to the cracked crystal. The unstable chamber is not locked because it is dangerous. It is locked because it is infected. The entity's rage and pain are concentrated there. A psychic wound that bleeds instability into the land. Lloyd's mind raced. Desmond was confessing, but why? To gloat? To assess their reaction? Why tell us this? Lloyd asked. Because, Dr. Forger, Desmond said, stopping in front of Naruto, I believe your unusual cousin here might be able to do what my father could not. Not control it. Soothe it. You are a different kind of instrument. His gaze was rapt, hungry. You could clean the wound. The horrific truth dawned on Naruto. Desmond didn't want to re-enslave the entity. He wanted to neutralize it. To turn its painful, destabilizing scream into a quiet, harmless hum. To make the foundation truly, permanently silent. Risky decision, Naruto decides to play along, to get access to the sealed chamber. He meets Desmond's gaze. It hurts. The whole mountain hurts. I can feel the edges of the break. Maybe I can smooth them. He put on a show of a simple man troubled by a palpable wrong. Desmond's lips twitched in a semblance of a smile. A compassionate perspective. Let us see. He nodded to the guide. Open the secondary chamber. The guard looked uneasy but obeyed, moving to a console and inputting a code. A hydraulic hiss echoed through the cavern as a circular section of the wall, previously seamless, recessed and slid aside. A wave of nausea hit Naruto. From the darkness beyond the door, the entity's pain erupted, a silent, psychic shriek of pure agony. It was so intense that Anya's distant, telepathic link flared like a sunburn in his mind, a gasp of shared pain. He stumbled forward, drawn to the source of the suffering. Lloyd moved to follow, but Desmond raised a hand. Only the sensitive one. The wound is personal. Naruto entered the secondary chamber alone. It was smaller, darker. In the center was not a crystal, but a grotesque, metallic device, a brutalist spear of iron and copper driven directly into a fissure in the living rock. Energy, sickly and green, crackled around it where it pierced the stone. This was the scalpel that had made the cut. It was still there, festering in the wound, preventing any healing. The entity's consciousness focused on him, a torrent of ancient, wordless anguish. Image, the spear being hammered in. Feeling, betrayal. Need, remove it. Please. He understood. Healing wasn't about energy or chakra. It was surgery. He had to pull the spear out. Meanwhile, in the opulent silence of Desmond's private study, you worked. The lock was complex, but her tools were finer than any lockpick. She was inside in under a minute. The room was a museum of cold ambition. She ignored the art and went straight for the modern safe behind a portrait of Hermann Desmond. It required a retinal scan. A problem. She heard a floorboard creak in the hallway outside. She had seconds. Thinking fast, she took a letter opener from the desk, a sharp, heavy sliver of polished steel. She didn't try to open the safe. She jammed the opener into the minute gap between the safe door and its frame, right near the hinge, and twisted with all the inhuman strength in her slender body. Metal shrieked. The safe door buckled, its internal bolts shearing clean off. It was not stealth. It was brute, shocking force. Inside were not documents, but crystal data rods and a single, handwritten journal. She grabbed them all. As she turned, the study door opened. Donovan Desmond stood there, not surprised, but intrigued. He held a small, elegant pistol. The wife, he mused. I wondered when you would reveal your true function. The dagger to the doctor's pen. You didn't speak. She assessed the distance, the weapon, the angle of his stance. She could kill him before he pulled the trigger. But the sound would bring every guard in the lodge. You want to silence the mountain's pain, you stated, her voice cold. You think that is peace. It is not. It is just another kind of murder. Stability is all that matters, Desmond replied. Your husband understands that. Or he will. In the secondary chamber, Naruto wrapped his hands around the cold, pulsating metal of the spear. The moment he touched it, the psychic scream became a physical force. Green energy arced up his arms, searing pain into his nerves. It was designed to repel, to punish. He gritted his teeth. I've had worse. He thought of Kurama's corrosive chakra, of the pain of 1,000 battles. This was just another enemy to overcome. He planted his feet, took a breath, and pulled. The spear did not budge. The entity wailed in despair. The mountain itself seemed to shudder. In the main chamber, dust rained from the ceiling. Alarms began to blare, not security alarms, but seismic alarms. Desmond's cool facade in the study cracked for an instant. He glanced towards the door, sensing the escalation below. He's trying to remove it. The fool will kill us all. It was the distraction you needed. She moved. Not at the gun, but at the portrait next to Desmond. She yanked it from the wall and in one fluid motion, hurled the heavy frame. Desmond fired, the shot going wide, punching into the desk. The frame struck his arm, knocking the pistol loose. It was on him in the next heartbeat, her hand of ice around his throat, slamming him against the wall. Tell your men to stand down, she hissed. Or I show you how a thorn princess prunes dead branches. His eyes widened. He knew the title. The garden's most elusive killer was in his home, her fingers on his windpipe. Back in the chamber, Naruto roared. He stopped trying to suppress his chakra. He let it flood his arms, not in a flashy glow, but as pure, augmented strength. Orange light flickered under his skin, visible only in the dark chamber. The metal of the spear groaned in protest. With the sound of tearing rock and shearing metal, it moved. An inch. Then another. The entity's pain spiked, a final, excruciating scream, and then silence. A deep, profound, healing silence. The spear came free in Naruto's hands. He fell backward, the foul metal clattering to the floor. The fissure in the rock pulsed once with a clean, warm, golden light. His light reflected and amplified, and then began to slowly, gently, knit itself back together. The painful pulse that had haunted him since his arrival softened, transforming into a slow, steady, contented rhythm. The mountain sighed. Up in the study, Desmond felt it. The constant, subconscious pressure he'd lived with since childhood, the nagging instability at the edge of perception, simply vanished. replaced by a solid, calm certainty. His face went slack with utter shock. He healed it? You felt it too, a sudden, grounding calm that washed through the lodge. She smiled, a real, fierce smile. He fixes things. Consequence, the diversion succeeded beyond all planning. Naruto has performed the surgery, removing the source of the entity's pain and beginning its healing. Ya has compromised Desmond physically and discovered his secrets. But the cost is immediate. The seismic alarms have triggered a full lockdown and alert. Desmond's men are converging. The family is scattered, and their cover is in ashes. The quiet war is over. The loud one is about to begin. Chapter 12, The Foundation of Truth. Silence. Not the dead silence of the grave, but a living, breathing quiet. The mountain's agonized pulse was gone, replaced by a deep, resonant stillness that seemed to seep into the very air, steadying the dust motes in the emergency lights. Naruto lay on the cold stone, the cursed spear heavy across his chest, his arms screaming with phantom pain from the entity's backlash. But inside, he felt a profound, unfamiliar peace. The job was done. In the main chamber, the change was subtler but no less seismic. The cracked central crystal didn't heal, but the sickly energy crackling around it faded. The oppressive weight in the air lifted. Lloyd Forger, standing guard with his heart hammering against his ribs, felt the shift on a visceral level. The imminent sense of catastrophic instability, the feeling that the mountain was about to scream, dissipated. Donovan Desmond, pinned to his study wall by his unbreakable grip, felt the foundation of his world reorder itself. The constant, low-grade psychic tinnitus of a broken land, the inherited anxiety he'd mistaken for his own genius tension, vanished. For the first time in his life, his mind was clear. The revelation was more terrifying than any threat. Desire, Naruto, to reunite with his makeshift family and get them to safety. Lloyd, to extract his scattered, compromised unit from the heart of enemy territory. Ya, to leverage her advantage over Desmond into an escape. Anya, for her family's thoughts to stop screaming with danger. Hidden obstacle, the seismic alarms have triggered an automatic protocol. The lodge and the facility are now in total lockdown, blast doors sealing every tunnel. External Desmond security forces are mobilizing, and the violent tremor has been detected by both Ostanian and Westalian monitoring stations. The world is now watching this mountain. What have you done? Desmond whispered, his gray eyes wide, staring past you at nothing. Fixed what your family broke, you said, her voice low. She relaxed her grip slightly but didn't let go. Now, you will call off your men. You will open the lockdown. Desmond's shock began to crystallize into cold, razor-sharp calculation. The asset had not just been contained, it had been transformed. The geological phenomena was now stable. The strategic implications were staggering. And it had been done by the Forger anomaly. The value of that man, of this family, had just skyrocketed from a threat to the most precious commodity in the world. He would not let them go. But he could not keep them like this, with a garden assassin's hand on his throat. The lockdown is automated, he said, his voice regaining its measured calm. Triggered by the chamber's integrity breach. It cannot be overridden from here. The only control is in the main facility chamber. It was likely a lie, but a plausible one. Ya's eyes narrowed. She believed him about the lockdown, but not his intentions. Then we go there. Together. She pulled him from the wall, keeping him in a tight, controlling hold, his arm twisted behind his back. You are our key. In the secondary chamber, Naruto forced himself to his feet. He left the malignant spear on the ground, a relic of pain. The fissure in the rock was now glowing with a soft, internal gold and green light, knitting together with impossible, geological speed. He felt a wave of gratitude so immense it wasn't an emotion, but a change in atmospheric pressure. The entity was thanking him. He stumbled back into the main chamber. Lloyd was at the sealed entrance, examining the mechanism of the massive blast door that had slammed shut after the guards had fled the tremors. Status? Lloyd asked without turning, his voice tight. It's healing, Naruto said, leaning against a dead console. The bad thing is out. How's our exit? Non-existent. We're entombed. Lloyd finally looked at him, and for a fleeting second, the mask of twilight fell away, revealing sheer, unadulterated awe. You truly did it. You changed the foundation of a nation. Before Naruto could reply, a hiss echoed through the chamber. A secondary personnel door, hidden in the shadows, slid open. Ya entered, propelling Donovan Desmond ahead of her. The sight was jarring, the elegant, deadly Ya manhandling the most powerful man in Ostania like a common thug. Lloyd's analyst mind immediately began calculating the geopolitical fallout. It was incalculable. The lockdown, you said. He says the override is here. Desmond, even in captivity, exuded an eerie authority. It is. But freeing yourselves changes nothing. The moment you emerge, you will be surrounded. Your identities are burned. Your operation is over. He looked at Lloyd. Twilight, was it? Wise will disavow you. You have no country to return to. Risky decision, Lloyd ignores Desmond. He addresses Ya and Naruto. He's correct about the surface. Exfiltration via our original covers is impossible. He paused, his gaze settling on Naruto. But our mission parameters have fundamentally altered. We are no longer intelligence agents. We are the caretakers of a secret that changes everything. Our priority is not escape, but continuity. He was proposing something insane. Not to run, but to negotiate from a position of unimaginable strength. You want to deal with him? Naruto asked, incredulous. I want to secure our family's future, Lloyd said, his voice dropping, including yet and the absent Anya in the word. Desmond, you felt the change. The instability that has plagued Ostania for generations, the underlying anxiety that fuels your party's rhetoric, your need for control, is gone. You can build a true, stable peace now. Or you can try to bury us and risk us taking the truth of what your family did, and what we fixed, to the world. Which do you think will stabilize your power? It was a masterstroke. Lloyd was not appealing to Desmond's morality, but to his cold, pragmatic self-interest. The secret of the entity was a sword of Damocles. If revealed, it would shatter the Desmond legacy. But if controlled, it could be the source of unshakable, legitimate stability. Desmond was silent for a long moment, his mind racing through the permutations. Finally, he spoke. The child. The telepath. Ya's grip tightened. What about her? She is the proof. And the vulnerability. A living lie detector of unimaginable power. She comes under my protection. She becomes the symbol of the new Ostania, a bridge between the seen and unseen worlds. He was already rebranding the trauma into a propaganda tool. Never, Ya and Naruto said in unison, their voices a blend of venom and defiance. Then we have no agreement, Desmond said softly. And you will die in this mountain, and I will tell the world that Westalian terrorists attempted to sabotage our national infrastructure, creating a tragedy that will fuel a war for a century. A standoff, sealed in rock. It was broken by a small, static whisper of thought that brushed against all their minds. Asterisk, Papa? Mama? Loud man? I can hear the mountain smiling. But the bad men are coming to the door. They have big guns. I'm scared, asterisk. Anya. Her telepathy, amplified by the mountain's new, calm resonance, was reaching them through the stone. Ya's face paled. Lloyd's composure cracked. Naruto did the only thing he could think of. He closed his eyes and pushed back, not with words, but with a feeling of immense, protective warmth, the same feeling he'd used to reach the entity. Hold on, kiddo. We're coming. He didn't know if it would work. But the mountain heard him. The floor trembled. Not a violent quake, but a deliberate, focused vibration. In the main chamber, the massive blast door sealing them in groaned. Then, with the sound of grinding stone, it began to rise, powered not by machinery, but by the living rock itself reshaping. Desmond stared, his cultivated cynicism shattered. The foundation was not just stable. It was obedient to the man who had healed it. The door opened to reveal not Desmond's guards, but a scene of confusion. The guards were there, weapons raised, but they were distracted, staring at the walls where veins of gentle green gold light now pulsed through the stone, illuminating the tunnels. The mountain was awake, and it was declaring its allegiance. Through the open door, a small, pink-haired figure darted, weaving between the stunned guards' legs. Anya! Ya cried, releasing Desmond and surging forward. Anya slammed into her, then reached out and grabbed Naruto's leg, then Lloyd's hand, creating a chain. Her mind was a bright, triumphant shout. Asterisk, the mountain helped. It likes us. It showed me the way, asterisk. They were together. A family, surrounded, but standing on ground that was quite literally their ally. Desmond looked from the reunited family to the awestruck guards, to the glowing walls. He saw the future written in the living stone. The old way, control through secrecy and pain, was over. A new foundation had been laid, and he was not its architect. He was just a man standing on it. He straightened his jacket, a gesture of surrendering dignity. It seems, he said, his voice hollow but clear, that we must discuss new terms. Consequence, the balance of power has irrevocably shifted. The forgers hold every card, the secret of the healed entity, the mountain's allegiance, Anya's telepathy, and the moral high ground. Desmond cannot bury them, and Wise cannot control them. They have transcended their roles as spy, assassin, experiment, and child. They have become the keepers of the world's deepest secret. Their fake family, forged in lies, has been tempered into something unbreakably real by a shared, impossible mission. The story of the forgers is over. The story of what comes next, the first family of a world that now rests on a mended foundation, is just beginning.